Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not the moon landing was a hoax, and we are starting right now with the non-hoax side going first. Thanks for being with us. MC Toon, the floor is all yours.
All right, well, I'm sharing my screen. As soon as you're
Perfect.
ready, let me know.
Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not the moon landing was a hoax. And I'm going to just quick zoom in. All right, perfect. We're ready for you, MC Toon.
All right, excellent. Well, this is Apollo 15 did a live to TV presentation where they dropped a hammer and a feather on the moon. And so I'm going to test to see whether or not the what they experienced there was what is predicted for the moon, and whether or not it would be possible on the Earth.
Thought that would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. We're on Falcon, and I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time.
So I did some analysis on it. They both felt the same rate, which tells us that it has to be in extremely low pressure, so either on the moon or in a vacuum chamber. And then, but what was the rate of acceleration down? And so I did some analysis on that. I counted the frames. The frame rate is 29.97 frames per second. How many frames did it take to fall?
Hit the ground at the same time.
All right,
How about that? They'll hit the ground at the same time.
Let's see. All right, so I'll walk through. It's 36 frames. So let's just see how I counted them. There you go.
That's not bad.
So with 36 frames, we can do the analysis. How long did it take? Well, 36 frames at 29.97 frames per second is 1.2 seconds. And the height of the drop is approximately 4 feet or 1.22 meters. I checked that by holding my arms in the same position as he was. He's 1 inch taller than I am, so it's right in that vicinity there. Use the kinematic equation to determine the downward acceleration. There's the kinematic equations on hyperphysics. I used equation number 3 there because I know displacement time and initial velocity. Run through there, v sub 0 or v naught is 0. Initial velocity is 0. So that first term v naught t is 0. So we just are left with x equals 1/2 at squared, giving an acceleration of 1.69 meters per second squared. I missed the squared on that the slide here. So the measured drop rate on the moon is 1.69 meters per second squared. The predicted drop rate of the moon, I won't go through the math of that, but we predict 1.63 meters per second squared as the acceleration on the moon. So we're accurate to 2 significant figures. The gravity on Earth is 9.8 meters per second squared, dramatically different. So it could not have happened on the Earth. So it happened on, it confirmed that it happened on the moon. Conclusion, the hammer and feather demonstration must have taken place in a vacuum and at a rate of downward acceleration of the moon's magnitude. Could they have been in a vacuum chamber and recorded normally, then slowed down to make the drop time match? Well, no, there would not be enough frames in the final video. Could they record it at a faster rate than slow down? What frame rate would be necessary to do it? I did the math here. They would have the hammer and feather would have to drop at 0.49 seconds. And how many frames, what frame rate would that be? That's a ratio of 2.45. So I have I increased the recording there to show what it would look like. This is the, they slowed down the footage. Answer, this is what it would have to look like when they filmed it for real. Watch them popping around. It's this normal movement. All right. There you go. That's a little sample of what they would have recorded it at and then slowed it down to make it look right. So it's not possible using the original speed, wearing those bulky suits, and other necessary manipulation to simulate 1/6 gravity. So a fast frame rate recording then slowed down hypothesis is falsified. There you go. All right, Peter.
All right. My turn?
Yep.
I'm going to share my screen as well. Can you guys see this? All right. So I've seen Michael Toon's analysis of the Apollo 15 hammer and feather drop, and I love the simplicity and power of that argument. However, the evidence from the Apollo program is like a buffet. You can pick anything you want in the data, and if your analysis is adequate and fair, you will find authenticity because it's the real thing. They really walked on the moon. One thing I thought would be really interesting and fun was biomechanics. This is basically the physics of how living things move. For example, humans. And it's one of those subjects where the average person is very ignorant, in a way, because the topic is not too foreign, but too familiar. Almost everybody learns how to walk when they're a baby, then spends the rest of their life doing it every day. With all that personal experience, we each know what walking looks like, how it feels, and how it works. Or do we? Let's start with the obvious. Our legs support us by pushing against the ground. This counteracts the weight of our bodies pulling downward. Well, what happens if that weight is significantly less, like on the moon? If we push with the same force that we're used to, we'll overcompensate and leave the ground. So a lunar astronaut's legs have to push much more gently to stay on the ground. Now, what happens if he tries to walk? Simple, he just uses less force and it cancels out to the same thing, right? Wrong. Walking works by allowing our center of gravity to tilt forward so that our legs can push not just downward but also backward, propelling us horizontally. So now you've got two dimensions in play, one with a force to fight against, your weight, that differs between Earth and Moon, and the other with basically nothing except the lateral component of that force vector between your foot and the ground, supplied by friction. This lateral dimension would not be substantially different. I'd repeat, not different between Earth and Moon. The effect of one dimension being the same, but another dimension being different has a result sort of like changing the aspect ratio of the physics. If we conceptualize each stride as a classical parabolic arc, the arc is going to be shaped differently on the moon. This shape either makes it shallower or longer. There's no other natural option. And this absolutely does make a human gait look and feel different on the moon. I've seen a lot of video games portray environments with exotic gravity, but I've never seen a single one get it right. Not ever. That's either because the game designers don't know better, or they don't want to spend the resources because the audience doesn't know better. Here's a few examples. Can you guys see this? This Starbound from Chucklefish, Mario Odyssey from Nintendo, and Starfield from Bethesda. For each one, I put a clip from normal G on the left and lower G on the right. And all of them are wrong. Do you see why? No? Let's clip just the walk cycles. See it now? There's no difference between them. The normal G and lower G are identical. The games account for low G physics only when you jump. As long as you're walking with feet on the ground, the two scenarios are identical. That's because these are games for entertainment and nobody cares if they're accurate. When NASA went to the moon, it was not entertainment. It was an effort by the top scientists and engineers in the world, and they not only considered the physics, but made an explicit study of it. They allocated time during the first moonwalk in history, while the entire world watched, for Buzz Aldrin to practice just running back and forth to see how it felt, trying different ways of moving and giving a verbal report. Because no one had ever done this before, and accuracy mattered. Now, if you want to say this is fake, you have to somehow explain these strange ways of moving. Yes, NASA had underwater training facilities because they were trying to cover a training shortfall that caused problems in the Gemini program, and they needed a higher fidelity option for simulating gravity. However, the immense drag from the surrounding fluid was a huge factor. This introduces yet a third variable in our discussion of physics, which makes a neutral buoyancy pool differ from both the moon and dry land on Earth. Here, downward acceleration matches that of the moon, but all muscular movements are slower and stiffer. Because of this, there are actually things the astronauts could do on the moon that they couldn't in the tank. Don't believe me? See for yourself. Here are some closely comparable movements in the water versus on the moon. Look especially at this pinwheel motion of the feet, which is a powerful reflex we have to catch ourselves when falling. Charlie Duke on this Apollo 16 moonwalk was able to pump his feet almost twice as fast as Neil Armstrong in the water, and yet still failed to catch himself because he was moving laterally with no drag. And don't say wires unless you're prepared to say this rock Charlie Duke fumbled was also on wires. I did an analysis on this very similar to the one Michael Toon just did, which gave results consistent with moon gravity. Okay, let's say in your denialism, you imagine they put wires on a random rock, even though the rock was tumbling as it floated. What about the clouds of dust kicked up by their feet? Oh yes, I did the same analysis on the dust. And yes, you better bet it shows moon gravity. So tell me, how did they put a wire harness on a cloud of dust? Changing the speed of the footage doesn't help you either because, as Michael Toon showed, the physics just don't line up. No matter what story you invent to say this is fake, you land in a heap of trouble with the scientific evidence. The conclusion is clear. The Apollo moon landings were absolutely real. Thank you.
Appreciate that opening. We're going to kick it over
I
to...
think you're muted, James.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to kick it over to the hoax side as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Kyle Adams, I'll kick it over to you. The floor is all yours for your opening statement.
Okay, I'll try and keep this nice and simple. In the past, I think I've thrown too many points out there all at once, and so I'm going to simplify it and not present quite so many today. Now, in order for the moon landing to happen, you're going to need solid materials like aluminum. If you don't have any aluminum, which is a big primary component of what the lunar lander was supposed to be made out of, you don't have any moon landing. Now, something has been kind of picking at my brain for a little while now, and that has been this whole concept of how water boils in a vacuum and how at higher elevations, water doesn't need as much temperature to boil. And so in a vacuum, you can get water to boil at room temperature. And I was thinking like, how about with aluminum? Would that same concept apply to aluminum? And it turns out if you put liquid aluminum in a vacuum, it's true. You don't need as high of a temperature to get aluminum to boil. It's still, you have to melt it down though, in order to get it to boil. But, and so melting temperature remains constant, no matter what vacuum you put it into. But that doesn't mean it's not going to vaporize. Okay. And so when you go from a solid state to a gas state, it's called sublimation. And you get this kind of effect with dry ice. And so I got to wondering, okay, at what point, what pressure is required to make aluminum subliminate at room temperature? Just at room temperature. What pressure is required to do that? To just vaporize aluminum? And it'll do this here on Earth, normal, like at sea level, a minuscule amount. But I'm talking just like, I want that thing to be vaporized. Okay. And so I'm not very good at math. Okay. I'm not like a math whiz, but computers are. And so I had a computer go ahead and crunch the numbers for me. And I was told the answer would be to get aluminum to just utterly vaporize, okay, sublimate from the solid state to the gas state, required vacuum pressure is 10 to the -6 atmospheres or lower. Okay. 10 to the -6 atmospheres or lower. Okay. So what is the pressure of the moon? The pressure of cis lunar space, at least so we're told, is 10 to the -12 atmospheres or lower. And between that and 10 to the -9th, both of which are well past the threshold to just make the aluminum just vaporize. I think that's pretty convicting right there. So I know MC Toon over there, at least in the past, he claimed that science never proves anything. And so I would like to really know if his mind has been changed on that matter, or if he's going to say that it's impossible to score any kind of goals in hockey. Because, if he's still to that claim, then I don't know what he's doing here. But yeah, I'll hear from my sidekick over here. I'm turning the ball over to you.
Thank you. So nice to meet you guys. Actually, I've never met you before, Kyle and Peter. Nice to meet you guys. And nice to see you again, MC Toon.
Yep.
And also, I think, James, I've actually never met you before, but nice to meet you. So, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to Modern Day Debates for having me on. And especially, I want to say thank you because a few months ago, you guys did a debate between Israel and Palestine. And I feel that's a subject which really needs to be talked about more. You know, all this stuff about 9/11, JFK, moon landings, it pales in comparison to the debates we need to be having. So, and I'm very proud to be here on a channel which would host such a debate. I would personally love to participate in such a debate myself. And speaking about debates I would like to participate in, I wanted to ask Kyle a question. Kyle, did you hear about this suppression of free energy, supposedly going back to Tesla? They've been hiding the free energy technology.
Absolutely.
So this is another debate which I think that I would particularly like to participate in. I have friends with firsthand experience of the suppression of free energy. And I also have a friend who works at NASA who has admitted to me that there's some sticky, tricky stuff going on there. But let's come back to the moon landings. I wanted to begin with a quote from Alan Alda. You know Alan Alda, the famous actor, right? You're familiar with Alan Alda, actor? Okay, anyway, very famous actor. So he came on, I think it was Good Morning America or some talk show like that. And they asked him, they said, Alan, did you hear about these flat earthers who believe the earth is flat? And Alan said, the most beautiful words. He said, yeah, but we shouldn't criticize them. There's something we can learn from everybody. So in that spirit, I want to mention, what did we learn from flat Earth? For example, back in 1838, Samuel Robotham invented an experiment where he had like a telescope and he could see the boat going away on the river, and there was a light on the end of the boat. So for 32 years, scientists did not have an answer for this question. It wasn't until 1870, when Alfred Russel Wallace presented the theory of atmospheric refraction and how it's creating, like a mirage. So we owe it to the flat Earth for our understanding of atmospheric refraction. We couldn't answer the question for 32 years, So definitely there's a lot we can learn from everybody. And speaking of which, I learned a lot from MC Toon. Last time we debated, I made a false.
Just to remind you, pardon my interruption, but just to remind you, given that there's limited time for the introductions, this is a great time to make your case that the moon landing was a hoax.
Okay. I didn't know how much time I had. So if you want me to jump into one little share screen, if you don't mind.
Ready for you. If you have a slide to show, go for it. It'll just be
Okay.
usually there's a green share button in the
Yeah.
middle there you go.
All right. So since my time is limited, I want to just reply to one thing MC Toon and I were discussing last time. So this is a NASA image. It's called the red print. You know, this is one of the original prints. So you can see this image was sold at the heritage auctions. You know, they sold for a lot of money. Someone paid for an original NASA print, right? So I'm going to walk us through a little fun thing here. Last time I mentioned we can use this lasso tool, and this lasso tool can be used to catch certain sections of the image, right? And so we can just kind of go down with our lasso tool and come up, go over. Yes. So now don't forget, you have to just copy paste that so it comes out as a separate layer, and then once you've done that, you can then adjust your image levels, brightness, contrast. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, it did work. Okay, so wow, ta-da! The moon landings were real. So you can see how they did that. They got rid of the spotlight effect. So what I'm saying is that any image which has come out since 2010 has been photoshopped garbage, and if you can get the real images from before then, you can see exactly how NASA photoshopped these images to hide the spotlighting effect on the ground.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening. We are going to jump into the open dialogue. Couple of quick housekeeping things. First, folks, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as we have many more debates coming up. But also, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen, folks, you don't want to miss this. If you were anywhere near the University of South Carolina, Destiny and Owen Shroyer will be debating this coming Monday at 8 p.m. at the University of South Carolina. Get tickets below. It's linked in the description box. There is an option for free tickets, free debate. Come on out. It's going to be a great time at the University of South Carolina this Monday, October 14th at 8 p.m. We'll see you there. With that, thank you very much, MC Toon and Kyle Adams, Brother R, and Peter. Thanks very much. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
All right, Kyle, when you looked up the sublimation temperature, the sublimation pressure of aluminum, did you get a temperature on that?
I specifically asked the computer to figure out the temperature at which it would just sublimate at room temperature. Okay, that was it. Room temperature was the target temperature, so that would be like 70 degrees.
Okay, and what's the sublimation rate?
What's the sublimation rate?
Yeah, how quickly will it sublimate at 10 to the negative 6?
I don't know. I just asked it to go like completely.
Yeah. So
Were you using an AI for this conversation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, did you notice at the bottom where it says Chat GPT can make mistakes?
Oh yes, I've caught Chat GPT making a lot of mistakes in the past.
Yeah, so have I.
Why? Well, okay, I trust them when it comes to computing math.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
It's
They
terrible
make
at math.
the math is almost one of its weakest areas.
Math is one of its weakest
It's
areas.
an AI. It's an automated
language
neural
model.
network.
Yeah,
That's
not a
that's
math
not an
model.
algorithm. When you have math that works well on computers, that's people plugging in algorithms, programming algorithms. It's very different with an automated neural network. Very
But
different.
I could ask
It
it
wasn't doing
a
math
specific-
though. To support Kyle at least a little bit here. You didn't ask it to do math. There's no math involved in that. It was you were asking it for a fact. What is the sublimation? You know, will it sublimate at 10 to the negative 6 atmospheres at room temperature? The answer is yes, but you didn't get the important details. At what rate? How long would it take to sublimate a hunk of aluminum? You know, it does sublimate. How much? How fast? How long does it take? You didn't do that. You'd have to do that.
It's not that hard to ask again, but yeah, I specifically, it was saying that it already
ahead.
sublimates, okay, at a very low rate just here on Earth and at sea level, okay, very low rate there, minuscule amount, but at this one, it's a much greater amount.
Oh, how much greater?
I,
Can you
it
give
just
us the quantification of that?
significant? It was significantly greater because
All right. Thanks,
it's already
Kyle.
doing that. Do you agree
Thanks,
that
Kyle.
it does sublimate at a much greater vacuum? Do you agree with that concept?
I need to know the rate, Kyle. The
So
rate.
you don't.
So
you don't
you're,
agree
I
with
mean,
the concept?
your assertion is if you take a hunk of aluminum, you put it on the moon, it'll just sublimate, just fly off into space like that. How
This
fast? You
gas
don't know.
doesn't clump together in a vacuum.
Don't know. You don't know how long it would take for a pressurized vessel on the moon to sublimate away.
I'd also like to point out it is definitely not room temperature on the moon.
Oh, I know. Which tells you that if it is higher, if the sun just happens to be shining, it's going to sublimate at an even faster rate.
What is that rate?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay,
just know
then your
it's
entire point
Really significant.
is pointless, Kyle. You didn't actually bring. You asked ChatGPT to tell you an answer. You didn't get the actual citation. You didn't go to the material safety data sheet or NIST information on the triple point of aluminum or something like that to see, and then to check what's the rate at which it will sublimate. You just say it'll sublimate fast. How fast? You don't know. Would it sublimate over the course of a day, over the course of 100 years? You don't know.
It's going to vaporize instantly. That was the whole thing. That's what I asked.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly. No, it won't.
You don't agree that it will just
No, that's laughable.
pretty much
Absolutely
like
ridiculous.
exploding. Yeah. At those
what do you think they make vacuum chambers out of sometimes?
We've never been
on the
able
Earth
to create a vacuum chamber of that magnitude.
Do you think that the sublimation rate at 10 to the negative 6 torr is that much different than 10 to the negative 5 torr? Or 4? Or 3? They're actually not. There's a very small difference between those.
Is significantly different than 10 to the negative 12th. It's like twice.
No, it's not. It's not twice. Oh
like
my gosh.
When it comes to negative powers, okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's actually
let me do your homework for you.
1
Go ahead,
million
Peter.
times smaller.
Oh my gosh.
Negative 6 and negative 12 to the power. I know it's significantly bigger. Okay.
Hold on. All right. I'll share.
You're making Michael Toon age faster here.
This is hilarious. Okay, so there's I've switched. There is can you read that there? Okay, so let's turn these into a percentage, right? So here's 1 atmosphere. That's 100% of atmospheric pressure, right there. Okay, now let's turn this into a percentage, right? We move the decimal point 2 spots, so it's from 10 to the negative 6 to 10 to the negative 4%. Okay, so that's right now. What's the difference between 10 to the negative 6 torr and 10 to the negative 7 torr? Well, we need to also move it, not 7, that was 12, right? So we're going to be at from 12 to 10. So I need 10 zeros or 10 sig fig here. Okay. So what is the difference between these two? That's what we're looking at. So when you're like, that's a significant difference between them. What's the difference between these two? Well, it's approximately this much percent because you're lost in the sig fig there. So the difference is approximately 0.001%. That's the difference between 10 to the negative 6 torr and 10 to the negative 12 torr. 0.0001%. There you go.
Okay. And that has to do with negative
said it
6
was-
power to the negative 12th power.
You said it was a big difference. It's not. It's a very small difference.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you that. Okay, because we're talking about like negative powers, but it's what I mean by big, I mean significant. Significant difference.
Very insignificant. 0.0001% difference. Very insignificant.
Very insignificant.
Very insignificant difference in pressure. Both of them are so small that you could treat them as the same.
There's also a difference between factors and quantities. Michael Toon's talking about quantities, and you seem to be kind of focused on the factor, although I'm not sure that you know that you're focused on that.
I'm kind of like thinking here about MC Toon and him trying to say like the difference between like normal atmospheric pressure versus like a 10 to the atmospheric pressure on the moon is pretty much the same. It's an insignificant difference. At least that's the way
It's the difference between 10 to the negative 6 and 10 to the negative 12 is so insignificantly small that unless you're actually doing something that requires that sort of a precision, you can treat them as both the same.
And he's not
treat
including
them
normal
both as
atmospheric
the
pressure in
same.
that. He's not saying normal atmospheric pressure is the same as atmospheric pressure on the moon. That's not what he said. He's comparing
10 to the negative 6 and 10 to the negative 12th, the same is like treating atmospheric pressure of just normal room as the same as 10 to the negative 6th.
No, it's like if you went to the beach and you came home with some sand in your shoe, and you were arguing with someone about whether you had 1 grain of sand in your shoe or 10 grains of sand in your shoe, and how much of the beach you brought home. That's what it's like.
There you go.
Do you agree that you would die if you were in a vacuum chamber of 10 to the negative 6th?
Has nothing to do with this at all.
Yeah,
It's
we're
talking
not
about the
comparing
air,
normal
it's not the
atmospheric
same thing.
pressure versus moon atmospheric pressure right now. We're comparing what in your conversation with ChatGPT you arrived at as the necessary pressure to instantly sublimate a moon lander. We're comparing that abstract pressure to the pressure of the moon, the atmospheric pressure on the moon. That's what we're comparing. Not real Earth atmospheric pressure versus atmospheric pressure on the moon. We're comparing the atmospheric pressure you said to atmospheric pressure on the moon.
The atmospheric, okay, 10 to the negative 6 atmosphere is the required amount of pressure to get aluminum to just vaporize
No.
at room temperature. That was
I don't know. I have like zero confidence that when you were asking ChatGPT about an aluminum object instantly vaporizing, that it truly understood what you were asking. I have like zero confidence in that.
This is the crux of the matter here. ChatGPT answers are not evidence. Any more than you could use it in a court of law. You're not going to use it as scientific evidence. You're going to have to provide a citation.
Because in all reality, ChatGPT understands nothing. It is not a brain. It is not a person. It is not an intelligence. It is basically a glorified search engine, a text processing predictor. It doesn't know or understand anything.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes so many mistakes. It has data. And when you ask it questions, it shoves data at you that it thinks is relevant. or
Well,
that,
yeah, it's trying to give you an answer that looks like what you've asked it to give it.
yeah.
Can I respond to Kyle's question here?
Go for it.
Yeah, so have you seen these videos where they take a balloon and a camera on it and they let it fly up? You've seen these videos before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a balloon, and when you put air into the balloon, you can't fill it all the way up, because as the balloon rises, the atmospheric level decreases and the balloon starts expanding, right? So this is the atmospheric difference between Earth, what you call sea level, and a space, right? Is that is the change in atmospheric pressure, right? Between, you're going from the sea level atmospheric pressure to zero atmospheric pressure, right? So that's the change. So if you compare that,
astronaut suit should inflate.
so if you compare that to you've seen on Earth, we have this cooking. You cook with propane at home or something. You buy a cooking gas can, right? You've seen those big cans. So this is a 5 psi tank, right? Normally they put 5 psi, and that is what the Apollo mission capsules were supposedly filled to, is a 5 psi tank. Now the question is, here on Earth, if you put 5 psi of gas into your tank, it's not going to explode. It's going to hold that pressure. And then if you somehow threw that up into space, then the atmospheric pressure will go down, and that will cause more tension on the sides of the shell, but the shell would still be able to hold that 5 psi inside. Am I right in thinking this?
I don't know.
Peter, what are your
It's
thoughts?
between you two. It's between.
Peter, audit. Or what do you think? Would you agree here, or would you disagree?
Oh, I think Rasa is mostly correct in what he's saying. I just think maybe he didn't quite bring it home to be relevant to what was being said in a clear way.
The tanks should like explode if they're put under enough pressure, like from a external vacuum pressure. And if you've got like a certain amount of pressure on the inside, the greater the difference between the internal pressure and the external pressure, that tank is going to give at some point. I think that's what he's trying to say, is that those tanks should explode at that under pressures like that.
Okay, well, that is an incorrect statement. I didn't hear him saying that, but that would be an incorrect statement.
Yeah, it all depends on the structure of the vessel. Can it withstand that pressure here on sea level, or can it withstand that pressure when it actually reaches zero atmospherics? You know, when it reaches zero, it will go ahead.
I was going to say, just calling it an incorrect statement, it's just hand waving it and saying, nah.
Well, the reason it's incorrect is because of what Rasa is saying. It has to, the difference in pressure from inside to outside has to overcome the tension in the material that the container is made of, which is what Rasa mentioned. He mentioned the tension of the sides of the container. That's what keeps it from exploding. You know, that's when they build containers for the purpose of going to the moon, they're going to build them strong enough because these are scientists and they know what they're doing.
They just happened to build it strong enough. And
no, they didn't just happen to. They designed them strong enough because they knew the physics and they knew the math.
If they don't know exactly how strong of a vacuum they're preparing for, then how do they know what they're...
They did know.
They did know. How did they know?
Well, I don't know all of the details of the history, but I'm sure that they figured out by the mass of the moon and the observations of, you know, atmosphere on the moon. They had many unmanned missions to the moon before the manned mission to the moon, so they could have measured during that time.
Yeah, they had been in orbit around the Earth at for years before that, and the pressure in orbit around the Earth is as a percentage, essentially the same as on the moon.
Okay, so they could observe the moon landing, like so they could observe the atmosphere on the moon from the Earth before the moon landing happened. Is that what you said?
In many ways, yes.
How did they observe the atmosphere on the moon before the moon landing happened?
Well,
Telescopes.
as I just mentioned, they
Lasers,
did
radar.
send unmanned missions there before they sent men there. So those unmanned missions were able to directly sample the medium they were flying through. And there's other methods as well.
It doesn't matter. They can say, let's treat it as if the pressure is zero, and design the things as if the pressure is zero. That's all they have to do. Yeah. And when it's 10 to the negative 6 torr versus truly zero, the percentage is minusculely different.
Because if you bring 10 grains of sand home in your shoe instead of 1, you have not reduced the size of the beach.
Or 0. Yeah, how much did the beach reduce by bringing 10 grains or 0 grains home? The same. Not exactly the same, but close enough to the same that if you're building a structure on the beach, it doesn't matter.
Except for when it's a life and death matter.
If you're building a structure on the beach, 10 grains of sand missing won't make a difference.
Okay, this is a little different than that when it comes to just talking about whether or not the thing explodes or just vaporizes instantly or not.
Yeah. Anyway, so Kyle, I asked ChatGPT while we're talking here to give me the sublimation rate of aluminum on the moon. We've got 4.87 times 10 to the negative 18 kilograms per millisecond.
Per millisecond. A millisecond is very small.
Yeah, but so is 10 to the negative 18.
10 to the negative 18 kilograms is even smaller. So I would say we're pretty safe for good long while. Plus they have photographs of them 50 years later. So we're good.
And that might help explain why in those photographs 50 years later, the equipment looks a little more worse for the wear,
Well, the photographs we have don't give us enough clarity to tell whether or not there's any degradation. They're from low moon orbit, which is still high enough that the resolution of the photos is.
Well, I thought there was a mission where they saw some equipment they had left there, and then during another moonwalk they saw that equipment
was
again.
Apollo is 11 or 12. Rasa knows it, and it was Voyager. Voyager. We talked about this last time, Rasa, where that's
where I learned it actually.
Yeah, they walked over they intentionally landed right near it. I think it's
Surveyor 3.
Surveyor 3. Yeah, they brought back a chunk of it. Yeah.
Okay. And also, we can also look. Apparently, the lunar environment isn't so bad if you can still see footprints on the surface after all these years.
There's no wind.
Well, what's something we do when we want to preserve something here on Earth? We vacuum seal it, right? Having no air there goes a long way to making things. Also, no life. So it's not going to grow mold or it's not going to be trampled by a wild animal. It's
What about the wild moondabeasts?
Extreme environments do tend to remain static for longer than lush environments that are filled with life.
I think you're getting the moon confused with Mars. It's Mars that's the one that has the crabs showing up in their images.
I don't know what you're talking about, Kyle.
Oh, you haven't heard about the crab on Mars? Oh,
There's no crabs on Mars.
I thought it was a lemming.
I agree, but that's not what NASA says or shows.
I thought there was a lemming.
NASA says there is no life found on Mars yet.
Yeah, except for when you actually go to the NASA website and look at their images of Mars and you zoom in on and you see a crab.
But Kyle, you claimed they said.
Right.
You take it back, it's fine.
Photos.
Yeah, okay. So pareidolia.
Yeah, okay. So Kyle, have you heard of pareidolia is what I was saying.
Awesome.
Not. So
moon crabs. All right.
Same reason that people look up at the moon and they see a face.
Yeah.
or a bunny.
Right,
if
so
you're from
warning.
Japan.
Oh, not early yet.
Warning to people, if you're going to be going out clubbing tonight, do not catch a case of moon crabs.
Oh boy.
Or sorry, Mars crabs. Mars crabs. All right.
So are you now under the impression that science proves things?
You wanted to have a philosophical debate on whether or not
Or are you
science can
still
prove things?
claiming that
I
it's
think it
impossible?
might be a great topic for James to book for a future date.
Well, I think this kind of shows the relevancy of your whole statements here.
I think I
So-
just proved that ChatGPT is not a good source for checking whether or not aluminum will sublimate in a low pressure environment.
Proved. Okay, that's something.
I'm using your word for you, Kyle, just for you.
Okay, you believe that in proof now. That's a huge difference. I'm
Kyle,
very proud of
I'm
you,
using your word.
which is
I'm
great.
I'm being hyperbolic, Kyle.
So
you can't win this
you or
debate with
don't.
semantics, Kyle. That's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Semantics doesn't
You
change
or
reality.
don't. Okay. If you don't know what my word is, then how can you say? I don't know. This is kind of interesting for you to say that.
How about you guys address some of our evidence? How about that?
Let me say one more time. I was being hyperbolic, but yes, we both did put some actual effort into our presentations. It'd be it'd be nice if somebody has responded.
I am enjoying the casual vibe here, but
Okay, so you want me to address your evidence? I can totally do that. Okay, so a lot of your thing had to do with like the photos and imagery and video footage from the moon, right? And so I just kind of look at that and I got to ask, how did that footage get from the moon to Earth? Like when it comes to signal wise, okay, they're talking about like broadcasting. It's live footage for everyone to see, but we know that Gus Grissom, before he was murdered, said, if we can't communicate between two buildings, how are we going to communicate with the spacecraft 240,000 miles away?
that was not a signal issue. That was a interpersonal issue. There was too much chatter going on, and they couldn't get ideas across between people. There was no technical issue about getting signals between buildings. That was not what he was referring to.
Did you really just think that they were struggling to be able to send electronic messages between buildings, Kyle? That's adorable.
All right. We know that.
Seriously, that's adorable.
We know that there's more to this, okay? To effectively broadcast television signal over a distance of 1,000 miles, you typically need a transmitter in the range of 10 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts. And Apollo, they were up there operating around 20 watts. Humongous difference, okay?
Yeah, there's more than just that in the differences between those two scenarios. Did you consider the other factors that were different?
Just a second. Now, can I take this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a little bit of a background. This was the book I actually used at university when I studied electromagnetism. I don't have the book that I used for my antennas class, but I took an antennas and class that dealt with that. So you talked about this broadcast for TV, a different TV system than they used, and you used a system that was probably an isotropic distributor of the radio frequencies versus a dish that was on the moon where they had a very narrow beam, and then on the Earth where they had a really large dish, multi-meter diameter dish to receive the signals. So although it was a rather low power signal coming from the moon, it was focused and it was picked up by a very large dish on the Earth. So if you think it's a problem, it sounds to me like you don't know what they did, but the burden would be on you to say that, to maybe perform the EIRP analysis to show that it's not good enough, that it wouldn't have enough power, something like that.
So you're saying not everyone on Earth could hear that signal that they were broadcasting from the moon, but it was a very focused signal to one place, and then that one place shared it out to other places.
Yeah, Kyle, the signal was being picked up by an official NASA partner. I think it was the one in Australia, right, Mike?
It depended on what time of day it was, but hold on a second.
For the original moonwalk with Neil Armstrong.
Kyle, did you think that from the moon they broadcasted directly to people's televisions?
That's what I was gonna, yeah.
Okay, I'm just going off of the thing. It was your guys' claim that everyone could hear it, right? They're sharing this with all the
It's
world.
even more adorable, Kyle.
Is that not what you claimed?
It was not being broadcast directly from the moon to people's televisions. No, that is
Okay,
not
so
what we
was your
claimed.
claim? Clarify your claim.
It was being picked up by a special receiver, and then that signal was being forwarded, rebroadcast to all of these different television stations that people were already accustomed to tuning into, and some of the broadcasting was like augmented, like in the case of, for example, Apollo 11, the first time they landed on the moon, there was no cameraman standing outside on the surface of the moon to catch the landing itself. So some of the TV broadcasts substituted a few seconds of animation to stand in for that moment during the mission.
It was labeled animation too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that conspiracists have latched onto, because later one of the astronauts joked on a talk show about, no, you didn't see it because it was animation. Well, he was referring to those few seconds, and then it switched over to the actual footage. And so, like, there was a whole process here, a complex process to get that television signal out to the whole world onto everyone's television sets. It was not just directly from the moon landing equipment to the television sets.
Okay, so Russia would not have intercepted. Oh my goodness, they're actually on the moon. In order for Russia to even claim that, or to be under any kind of impression, they'd have to be watching American TV, because we're getting the signal and we're rebroadcasting the signal over there to Russia. Is that correct?
They have their own dishes, Kyle. They have their own
dishes,
so,
and their own dishes.
They could eavesdrop on the same conversations as
So
it came directly from the moon.
Being broadcasted to the whole world
from the moon to the Earth with a low power, a high gain antenna,
really
to the Earth.
Power.
So the entire, well, it's not really low power. It's the appropriate amount of power. The people doing this knew what they were doing. They knew how high the power needed to be in order to receive it. Anyway, so we had. If you're going to talk inverse square law, I will absolutely be delighted to see you get out your pencil and paper and run through the inverse square law of the EIRP analysis for those antennas at power rates. Don't talk inverse square law if you're not ready to do that, okay? Because I'll follow along if you're going to do the EIRP analysis of it. I'm ready for it, Kyle. Okay. I don't think you are.
Well, yeah. Math isn't my forte. I'm not going to claim it is.
We know this.
I'd rather have a computer go ahead and just calculate that for me and just do that.
You mean ChatGPT?
Yeah, next time don't use ChatGPT.
Gosh. All right, so back to the actual evidence that Peter had that you didn't yet address because you wanted to talk about how it was transmitted, which really you should have some background information on these things before you enter into this kind of debate. I don't know what you're thinking. But anyway, Peter had some amazing evidence, some analysis of the movement. What do you say about that?
About the movement? There's a lot of ways to fake movement, like tons of different ways to fake movement.
Can you name one that actually works in this situation?
Okay. So when it comes to just taking a photo, okay, please tell me.
I was talking about video.
Okay, you can take a video of a video. There's different ways to manipulate movement and frame rates, because a lot of this came down to frame rates.
No, a lot of it did not come down to frame rates, Kyle. I explicitly explained why that was not the case, because the physics don't line up.
Okay, MC Toon was the one who was over there, like literally counting the frame rates.
Yes, I was counting frames too.
Okay, and you can make the frames wherever you want them to be.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
You can slow down and speed up footage, but you can't change the physics that's portrayed in those frames unless all of the imagery is like fake somehow. And they didn't have CGI in 1969 or any time throughout the 70s.
They did, actually.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
Who had CGI in the 1970s?
Yeah, it's interesting kind of looking into the history of it. I don't have it all on the tip of my fingers right now, but yeah, I've looked into it in the past, and it's interesting to find out kind of
You
like
want to
how
see what CGI they had in the 1970s?
I'm aware of like what the
Well,
public thing what looked
yeah.
like when it comes to
Peter's got it.
I just think about like Game Boy games and like the digital cameras, and it's not all about digital cameras.
All of that was decades later.
I am aware of that.
I think you have your history a little wrong, and I'm gonna give you a
I'm
little
aware of that.
reality check
I'm
here
aware-
because
I'm aware when it comes to like computer generated graphics and when it comes to the technology of digital cameras themselves. And my point I was trying to say was the Game Boy camera being a digital camera, being very low quality, distributed to the masses. I get that, and it was long decades after the moon landing claim, and so I understand that, but that doesn't mean CGI isn't the same age as
Peter, do you have that you had a couple videos of that?
yes,
That was
well,
handy.
I have a 90-second visual effects demo reel from the 1970s. I did a demo reel of visual effects from the 1970s. You guys want to see it?
I'd love it.
Okay, do you acknowledge practical effects?
That's exactly what I'm about to show you because that's all they had. That is not CGI. Practical effects does not equal CGI. Those are two different things.
Okay.
Here, let me share my screen. Make this a little bigger. You guys ready?
Yes.
Oh, I probably don't have audio for this, do I?
That's okay. It's better that way. Otherwise, we get.
But you can just
copyright
sort of
because,
observe.
like MC Toon.
Looks like Star Wars.
No, it's a 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, okay.
It says on the screen. Can you not see that?
I said it looks like Star Wars. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll get to Star Wars. This is 1968.
Uh-huh.
There you go, Star Wars.
Yep.
Notice this is
Decade
almost
later.
10 years after the moon landing.
We need some color commentary.
There's also some low budget British television that I grew up watching.
I love Doctor Who.
Oh, wow. He's being murdered by the Daleks.
Just invert the screen.
All right, so you did not just now see any CGI. None of that was CGI.
Okay.
All of that was practical effects. Miniature models, 2D compositing, rotoscoping, in some cases stop motion animation. That's what you saw. And it's very limiting. You know, I've spent my life studying visual effects. This is the career I wanted to be in. So there's things that a filmmaker just couldn't show with practical effects, and they had to use creative storytelling to get the idea across, and it worked because the audience wanted to be fooled. It was entertainment.
So when do you think CGI was invented?
It was invented in the 1980s.
No, it wasn't. Just Google it. I just Googled it now. When was CGI invented? 1950s.
Let's see
Can you provide the source?
Let's see some 1950s CGI.
Actually, I have a question.
I
for
can't even
Peter.
laugh. I can't even ask with a serious face, Kyle, because I know what it will look like.
Hey, you're the one claiming that CGI was invented.
You're the one that has to claim that it was CGI. Then you need to show that the CGI of the era was capable of doing stuff that looked like that.
Yeah.
That's
I
your
was just simply
burden.
claiming that CGI was invented a lot earlier than you claim it was. That was all my claim was. Okay.
Can I ask
Okay,
Peter?
so you're trying to one up us on trivia, but the point is that CGI was not even commercially viable until the 1980s. That's why I said 1980s.
Can
It
I
would,
ask Peter?
Yeah.
Peter, can I ask a question?
yeah.
Because you studied this. I think on YouTube there's a video. I can't tell you the title right now, but it's something like NASA was invested in using computers to manipulate video images. I think it was between Apollo 16 and Apollo 17. They hired a computer company to help them. You can search. There is a video on YouTube where NASA did invest in only for Apollo 17. I think. Are you familiar with this?
No, but it doesn't impress me because they still weren't faking the images. It wasn't physically possible at the time. If they were investing in new technology for whatever reason, who cares? It wasn't viable yet.
I just asking because you said you're a history buff in that, and I haven't.
No, not a
I know
history
that
buff.
video.
I just
Okay.
know a lot about visual effects. That's all.
But that's pretty important to know that NASA did invest in visual effects between Apollo 16 and Apollo 17.
Is it though? Is it really
Yeah.
that important to know?
Well, if your specialty is video effects, then I would think that's pretty important. That
My
NASA
specialty is
invested
how to make visual effects and how to tell the difference between one kind of visual effects technology and another. That's what my specialty
Okay,
is.
cool. Anyway, it would be worth searching that. It's a good YouTube video. I'm not saying that's proof of anything, but it is something to learn about.
All right, so we're still sitting here without actually having addressed the content of Peter's analysis or my analysis.
I did address that when I.
You
brought
said
up-
it could be fake without proving that it was faked.
Well, you
using
don't
your
believe
word
me,
for
so what does
proof
that matter? So, yeah, I went and brought up the whole signal broadcasting, and they just didn't have the power to do that. And you say,
You
"Oh, yeah,
didn't
they
prov-
did," and we're
You
kind of
did
better.
not provide the EIRP analysis showing that they didn't have that
Yeah,
power.
and you didn't provide it saying that they could.
Not
So
my
I
burden.
an impasse, and so you want to claim it
Burden
did.
of proof is on you. You're the one that made the claim, not me. I don't have the burden. You do.
Okay, you're the one claiming it happened. I'm the one saying, no, I didn't.
No, Kyle, you are denying the universal consensus of history and calling a huge number of upstanding professionals liars and con men. And so the burden of proof is on you, not on us.
You're
But
one.
besides, we did meet our burden of proof, and you just are basically
You won't even
barking
talk
at the
about it.
moon, to pardon the phrase.
Wait, you're claiming that was proof.
Yes,
Scientific
what
proof.
Michael Toon and I just provided were proof.
Was scientific proof. Well, I congratulate you at disagreeing with the mainstream masses that say there is no such thing as scientific proof. I
You're not
congratulate.
going to win on semantics. Stop trying that.
Yeah, I congratulate you for thinking of that. Okay,
Oh,
I'm
he
not
goes back to
gonna-
semantics.
I'm
Adorable.
Is that like your security blanket? You have to run back into that every time we.
Well, I just really applaud people for having the brave.
All right, all
This
right.
might
So
be
can
an
you be done
opportunity.
applauding and get back to the point?
This might
Okay.
be an opportunity. Are there any points from MC Toon or Peter that you especially disagree with, where you're just like, no, I can't even, let's say we just call it strong evidence, where you'd say, well, because even if you admitted it's strong evidence, that seems like it'd be a challenge, Kyle. So my guess is that you would say, well, no, I won't even grant them strong evidence. Are there any points
Okay.
from their case that you'd say, no, not strong evidence?
The entire moon landing itself for me is just immediately dismissible when I know that the earth is flat. And so they want to point at like the pictures of the moon itself, or sorry, not the moon. If they want to point at pictures of the earth and it shows a globe, then immediately after that, I'm just going to say, sorry, the earth is flat. Yeah, that's a whole other argument. I get it. But yeah, for me, that's when it comes to.
This is the personal incredulity fallacy card.
It's not personal incredulity.
I suppose what we'll do
It's based on a
is
foundation.
it sounds like, oh, I don't want to interrupt you, Kyle. Go ahead. I'll give you a chance to respond to MC Toon, and then I want to redirect us.
Okay, so it's credulity in the flat Earth that just makes the moon landing hold no water.
everybody, let's say we went back to, okay, so I think you said like nothing they would say could make you think that what they've said is strong evidence because you're so convinced of the arguments for the moon landing being a hoax. I suppose then, of course, we have to ask what would be, let's say, one of those, or even the best, the strongest argument, Kyle. That way, MC Toon and Peter can engage with your strongest argument for the moon landing being a hoax. Because it sounds like you're saying that's the main reason why you can't grant that their arguments are strong evidence. So it kind of brings the burden back to you in the sense that they're gonna want you to unpack that.
Okay, so for me, like the entire moon landing itself falls apart because my foundation in the moon landing being a hoax is actually built in flat Earth, and saying so long as the Earth is flat, the moon landing could not have happened.
Okay, but that's not going to be convincing to an audience if you can't even explain all of the steps of that logical process in yourself. Like you're describing for yourself what is or is not convincing without sharing enough of it that we or the audience can follow along with you. That's not how you debate.
I can.
That's how you share, like in a group therapy session or something.
So you want me to expound on why the Earth is flat?
I want you to debate. That's what I want you to do, because that's what I thought we were here to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh, cool. You have the burden of proof for your claims.
The burden of proof.
Burden of proof for
yes,
your
and
claims.
you can say the same thing. You've got the burden of proof also. I'm glad you believe in proof. Thank you.
We met our burden.
You met your burden.
Yes, it's your turn to meet yours or to falsify ours.
Where is your proof exactly? What specific thing do you claim was proof?
The analysis that Michael Toon did on the hammer and feather drop,
that was
or
proof.
the analysis that I did on the biomechanics evident in a wide range of videos from the moon landing,
so
from various moon landings.
Your absolute claim is that there is zero possibility that was faked.
Unless you can show any plausible possibility that it was faked.
Yeah, if it's going to be your claim that that's fake, you have the burden that it's fake.
I just have to say that there's a possibility that it is fake. And
that's not how it works.
No,
that's not how it works.
Okay,
that's waving the white flag. So for reference, if this were like a Lincoln Douglas debate or a Mace or Oxford style debate, when you make a claim, you have certain things that you're obliged to do, and the judging panel, Lincoln Douglas, are judged on points. You would get points or not points for them. So you saying, "Nuh-uh, it could possibly be faked," would get you 0 points as your response for that, and would just give us that entire interaction. Just hand it over to us. This is what you've done. So I appreciate that, Kyle.
Well, that's what you're doing too, is saying nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh to what? What am I saying nuh-uh to?
Okay, you said nuh-uh when it comes to the whole thing with the signal being not strong enough. You said nuh-uh to that.
What evidence did you present
to the whole
right? Perfect. Right to that one. What evidence did you present in that interaction there? What recall for us the evidence you presented?
Okay, that solid objects will actually sublime in a vacuum.
It's not
sublime is not a word.
It's not
a verb for that.
It's not a band.
Solid objects will sublimate in a vacuum.
There you go. Okay.
When you get like
that's a claim. So far, you've made the claim, Kyle. You've made the claim that they will sublimate. Now, the next step would be to provide the supporting evidence for it. So it'd be a citation to something that's not ChatGPT, to maybe some material data sheet from NIST, for example, showing the rate at which aluminum would sublimate at that pressure. You haven't done that. I used your same tool and determined that the rate at which it would sublimate is exceedingly small. So it's not looking too well for you. I used your same tool and it said it's not going to sublimate fast enough to make a difference.
Okay, and I went through, actually, it was deep AI, deep AI, deepai.org. So that was mine.
Okay, it doesn't
Should
matter.
I
It's
go to
pretty
Deep
obvious.
AI and ask the same damn question, Kyle? It's not going to give a different answer. It's
Well, you're saying
seriously.
ChatGPT, so I'm just kind of correcting you on that. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
It's
Kyle.
evident that whichever one you used, the AI did not understand what you meant by instantly vaporize. So it
This
gave you
horse-
the wrong answer.
This horse is dead.
okay.
This
So
horse is so dead. All right. The other one you presented was you talked about the the transmission. You compared a TV transmission rate. You didn't cite anything specific of how a television tower does an isotropic transmission to small antennas in people's houses. And somehow you tried to say that was analogous to a high gain, narrow focused antenna on the moon, pointing to a multiple meter diameter dish on the Earth. Completely non-analogous at all.
you're going back to the whole thing on it pointing at one dish in particular. And so if it's pointing at one dish in
It
particular,
wasn't pointing at
only
one
in
dish,
that place
Kyle.
will they be able to receive
It
that.
wasn't pointing at
Therefore,
one
the
dish,
Russians
Kyle.
would
It was
not be able to intercept that transition.
It was not pointing at one dish, Kyle. It was pointing at the entire Earth.
It was
Gosh.
pointing at the entire Earth. And so now you're kind of going
Gosh,
back and
Kyle.
forth.
No, I'm not, Kyle.
One dish was in particular picking up the signal while it was pointed at the entire Earth, which is a very narrow beam from the moon because the moon is 250,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, what's the
so-
width of a look at the beam divergence.
Okay.
Kyle, my gosh.
It's either focused or it's not focused. And so
No,
Yes,
that
this
is not
was a
how
the
focused
entire Earth
beam.
there.
oh my gosh, you think it's a pencil? Do you think that it actually sends like a pencil thin beam?
I'm not the one making the claim here. This is you.
Yes,
You're the
You
one
are- you-
misunderstanding the claim.
you are the
apparently.
one asserting.
Yeah,
You're the
you're-
one asserting things about how
Okay.
it happened when that's not
Okay.
how it happened.
You're talking about hitting a satellite dish, and so it's focused in on that satellite dish. And so I'm kind of
No,
the
it's not.
impression here if that it's going to be within the range of that satellite dish, kind of give or take the size of that dish. And so, but you're talking about it's much larger than that. So now the Russians can intercept it, and so it doesn't tell me the same kind of focus. And so when you're just saying it's focused, you're kind of losing.
Kyle, you're going to come into a debate on this topic and you're going to make claims about the radio transmission. You need to have a background in the radio transmission. You would need to know the hardware and the circumstances that they used to transmit from the moon. You would need to know the hardware and the circumstances that they used to receive it on the Earth. You're completely unaware of all those things. And you're trying to make some sort of an assertion about how it worked when you don't know any of the very most basic aspects of what was happening.
Okay, so why don't we all just use their technology? And so we don't have to spend, the 10 kilowatts or whatever it was. Okay. Yeah, 10 to 100 kilowatts. Okay, why don't we all just use that to broadcast our radio signals here on Earth?
That's
Why are we
not the situation. It's not applicable unless you're trying to send a signal from one location to one other location. That's not how television broadcasting works. They're trying to broadcast to as large an audience as possible, which is why it's isotropic.
Do you know what isotropic means, Kyle?
You want to explain it?
If you don't know, then you're not tall enough to ride.
Okay, so you're asking me trivial questions.
If you don't know what it means, you're not tall enough to ride the ride.
Okay, so you're just trying to demean me now? Is that it? Or what?
It has a manifestly practical reality in this conversation. The fact that you don't understand these things. He's not just trying to demean you. He's trying to point out you are unqualified to be making the statements you're making.
This conversation is not a conversation you have the background to communicate, to participate in. That's not demeaning. You should know what lane you're in. This is not your lane.
We
Right.
keep
I can
throwing
tell you- I
stuff
can
and you
give
keep
you reasons.
missing them.
I can give you whatever reasons I have for not believing in the moon landing. To win a debate, you have to convince someone. Me telling you the reasons why I don't believe in the moon landing those are all reasons. And so those are reasons that you've got to kind of overcome.
Okay, so
So
there might be a misunderstanding here in what you just said might show a misunderstanding. You said to win a debate, you have to convince someone. Okay, that's not quite accurate. To win a debate, you have to convince a reasonable third party, the audience. Okay, the audience has to be able to follow what you're saying to the logical conclusion that you're trying to assert. You are never going to be convinced because you've already made up your mind. That's not what we're here to do. We don't win the debate by convincing you.
Okay, so the audience, there is no survey that says where the audience
Yeah.
stood beforehand versus afterhand. This isn't intelligence
This
squared
isn't-
where they actually do that. Okay, the
This
audience
isn't,
here is
Oxford or
the ones-
Mace,
right.
yes.
Okay, the only people that we can actually see here interacting is us. There's me, there's my my partner, and there's you guys. And so you guys are the only
Yeah.
people I know where you stand on the matter. I
Yeah,
don't
you're
know where
right.
you
So
stand.
it's
I have
it's
no
a
idea.
the matter
There's
of who wins or
There
who
is no
loses in a
judge on the
debate.
audience. I'm still talking now. Okay, there is
All right,
no
sorry.
judge on the audience where they're saying, "This is my stance. I changed my stance." They are not really there. I can't. We can't gauge the audience. There's no rating there. Okay, the only people here is us and you.
Yeah, so you're right if you're trying to say that the matter of who wins the debate is subjective. Technically, that is correct. There will be varying opinions on who won the debate, because if there are people in the audience who are biased toward denialism or conspiracy theories, they're going to think that you and Rasa won the debate, typically. Or if there are people who are not biased toward those things, then they're going to think that Michael Toon and I won the debate. That's how it usually works. You're right.
So the only qualifying factor for me to be here is just to me to have an opinion, and you've got to change my opinion if you want to win the
No.
debate.
No,
That's not our goal.
Between us. Between
no.
us. Yeah, if I want to
Not even
change,
a little.
if I want to win the debate with you, I've got to change your opinion.
Well
That's how you-
then everyone today is going to lose. By that standard, everyone is going to lose.
It's called an impasse. Okay, it's a draw. That's what happens. If no
All
one
right, all right.
That's not, oh my gosh, adorable.
if no one changes their mind, it's an impasse.
Except that I think you are going to end up looking very foolish here because the reason for the impasse is just you sitting there going, "Nuh-uh." You know, you're not presenting arguments based in logic or evidence. You're presenting denialism. We
No.
are presenting arguments based in logic and evidence. It shows that our reasoning is more objective than yours, that you're the one with the greater bias. That's what it shows.
Okay, you're just saying we're logical and you're not. That's not how it works.
I'm making an observation about what's happening right now. You are dismissing evidence and not presenting any counter evidence. You're dismissing logic and not presenting any counter logic.
I dismissed it and gave you my reasoning
This
why.
might be an opportunity.
That's my logic.
We haven't talked about the social aspects yet, which are interesting because if one takes the position that the moon landing was a hoax, some might ask, why is it that nobody has blown the whistle? Nobody that's involved with the project and knew that it was fake. Some people might ask that. That by itself is really interesting and fun. And maybe, though, Kyle, I'm not trying to speak for you. So maybe you take the position that there are whistleblowers. So this is a good chance that we can explore that because that's obviously what the other side would say, namely your side, Kyle. Or Brother R. Either of you, if you have any thoughts on whether or not there are kind of social arguments for the moon landing not being a hoax, namely, why aren't there any whistleblowers?
So my statement on am I going first or?
Brother R, we haven't heard from you in so long. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. So there has been a few whistleblowers. Bill Casing was the first one. He was involved with Rocketdyne. And since that time, there's been a few more. And I happen to be one of them. Means that I have been given access to classified information, and I blew the whistle. I decided to reveal that information. And I'm not the only one, of course. Just recently, there was another whistleblower, sort of a whistleblower. His name is Professor Yang Yu Guang of the International Astronautical Federation. So he is obviously a scientist from China, and he was chosen to represent China in the International Astronautical Federation because he can speak English very well. You know, most of the scientists here in China don't speak English very well. So he was chosen to be representative of China. And on the recent Chang'e 6 launch, you know, China just launched back in May. China launched the Chang'e 6 to go collect samples from the backside of the moon. And on that launch, Professor Yang Yu Guang made a statement, and I'm going to quote from him. He says, quote, "Many people doubt whether the Apollo missions were real or not. Myself personally, I find it almost unbelievable that they could have conducted a lunar orbit rendezvous with the 1960s technology." So this is also, there's been other examples of whistleblowers, but this is one of the most recent ones as well.
So how is that a whistleblower if all he did was communicate his incredulity?
This is a Chinese style of whistleblowing. We call it whistleblowing without actually whistleblowing.
No, that's fundamentally different because he expressed his opinion about history. That's not him having classified information that he revealed, like you said about yourself.
Of course, he's not revealing any classified information.
Then he's not a whistleblower. He's just a denialist.
He's hinting at becoming a whistleblower.
Oh, so you're counting your eggs before they hatch.
Our biggest whistleblower is still Buzz Aldrin himself.
No, that's not correct, Kyle. Show me any clip of him denying the moon landing.
We didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
You know, misquoting somebody is lying, Kyle.
It's not misquoting. That's actually like,
yeah, you are misquoting, misattributing what he was saying. That's lying.
No,
it goes against your religion, Kyle. Why are you doing that?
Yeah,
that's kind of gross.
He said it.
It's really gross.
Yeah. They also called it staged. Yeah, I got that one too. And yeah, what was the scariest thing that happened? Scariest? It didn't happen.
He wasn't scared, is what he was saying, Kyle. You're
No,
misrepresenting him.
It didn't happen.
That's a sin,
the
Kyle.
nightmare scenario.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Kyle, it's disgusting when people do that.
Okay, no, yeah, he said it. Yeah, it was quite clear.
And for you to pretend like you have some sort of a religious background and then misrepresent what he said, it's really gross.
It's not misrepresenting him.
Yes, it is, Kyle.
100%. It's
No.
disgusting.
Okay, it's not misrepresenting him at all.
Yes, it is. Show the evidence.
What about Neil Armstrong? What about Neil Armstrong's quote? He said that there's many unsolved mysteries hidden behind truth's protective layers.
That sounds very philosophical.
Yeah, waxing eloquent. Wow.
That's not a denial of the moon landing.
It's a hint.
No.
Hints are not evidence. My gosh.
Any other alleged whistleblowers? Anybody that came out and said, "Listen, I know you think that we went to the moon, but I was a part of the project. I was one of the video editors or the CGI people or anybody like that with an explicit."
So Rasa claimed Bill Casing. I think that's worth mentioning. Bill Casing worked at Rocketdyne and left Rocketdyne well before they had done anything with Apollo stuff in magnitude. So he couldn't have been a whistleblower. He wasn't in a position to have the type of information necessary.
Okay. When it comes to whistleblowers, it's really important to remember that just because you haven't heard of any whistleblowers out there, that doesn't mean they aren't out there. It just means that there's poor media coverage on the matter. Okay?
Yeah, but
that's the start. I'm not done. Okay?
All right.
The other thing is, just because, even if there weren't any whistleblowers out there, okay, even if there weren't, that doesn't invalidate it and saying, because not every secret that the CIA keeps gets blown. Okay. So just because no whistleblowers have ever been out there on certain secrets when it comes to the CIA, that doesn't mean it's still not a secret. So you can speak now.
Yeah, so again, you've got the wrong standard of how a debate is supposed to work. This is not a conversation to convince you. This is a conversation to show that you are right to the audience. You are
You're
not
saying-
presenting arguments or evidence. You're just saying things that you think are true. Or, you know, as Michael Toon was showing, personal incredulity. That's not effective in a debate. It doesn't show people that your position is valid. It just shows that your position is strongly held. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I know the difference between validity and just being strongly held. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're showing a strongly held belief, not a valid belief. You're not showing that it's valid. You're only showing that you know, you're saying it could be possible. That doesn't show that it's valid or that it's true.
It doesn't say that it happened.
As long as it's possible, it's not proven.
It's not science's goal.
Okay,
It's not-
Kyle,
it's not
there
our
is
But now you're kind of going back there, MC2. You said it was proven.
Kyle, I
It's
was
possible, it's
using
not, then it's not.
I was using your word proof to mock you.
Okay, so you don't believe
Okay,
in proof.
get
and
that
therefore
straight,
all the-
Kyle.
everything you
I
said is
was
now invalid.
mocking you, Kyle. Science does not prove. I was mocking you when I used your word.
Okay.
and the
No,
reason science doesn't prove is because of what you just said, Kyle, that if you can imagine any way that it's possible to not be true, then it's not proof. By that definition of proof, yes, science doesn't prove anything because you could say we're in the Matrix. You could say nothing your eyes see is real. Anything you can imagine could be true, technically, because it can't be 100% proven. That's why there's something called Occam's razor. Have you heard of Occam's razor?
Yes, I have heard of Occam's razor.
Okay, well, you don't seem to use it very much. I think you should use it more.
Yeah, I don't agree with Occam's razor entirely.
Okay, that probably explains a lot.
Okay, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's correct.
No,
Well, Occam's razor isn't this is the right one. Occam's razor is a guide for which one you should investigate.
And it's not always true.
Yep.
okay,
Okay, we agree
It's-
on that. And you've also both said that what you presented is not proof. Therefore, you've invalidated your entire statement.
yeah, and in the same sense that what you see before your very eyes right now is not proof against simulation theory. I don't believe in simulation theory, and I would hope you don't either because it's stupid. But that doesn't mean that we can prove it's wrong. The argument we have that simulation theory is stupid or wrong is that there's no evidence for it. And therefore, by Occam's razor, the more reasonable position is that what we see with our eyes is real. That's how logic works. That's how science works.
Yeah. So you've both gone ahead and said that you don't have any proof that the moon landing happened.
Oh
Invalidating
man, is that your only life raft?
Kyle, your partner's laughing at you.
I think he's.
Seriously.
I don't know. Let's let him speak for himself. Who are you laughing at?
No, I mean, I'm not really laughing at it. The whole thing is quite actually sad for me. But I do have some proof of a moon landing hoax. If you guys are interested in seeing it.
Oh, I wish you had shown that at the beginning.
Rasa, you've got to figure out the structure for a debate. You get your evidence at the beginning, then we talk about it later.
We
Dude.
want to see it so bad we can taste it. Roll the footage, Dr. R.
All right, thank you. Can I share screen?
Yes.
All right. Give me a second.
Don't tell me you've lost it. We need this.
Oh,
This could be it. This could change the world.
This is the one.
Don't tease us, Rasa.
Okay, it's coming. Hopefully.
If you haven't yet, folks, we appreciate you hitting that like button if you enjoy these debates. I know I sure do. I told these guys before we started that I enjoy this so much. And so, by the way, folks, in addition to hitting like, you can find all of our guests linked below. We appreciate these guys are tremendous. Holy smokes, here's the footage. We're ready for you.
Well, that's a
Thank
JPEG.
you.
I don't think that's footage, but
Yeah, it's just a picture, some pictures. So this is a Surveyor 3 scooper arm. Okay. So everybody's familiar with the Surveyor 3 craft. That's the unmanned craft that they sent in 1967. And it had this scooper arm on it, which could reach out and scoop the moon dirt. So we talked about this last time. This scissor arm has a third band underneath it. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures of this. So there's the scooper arm, and here's the band underneath it. I'll show you a few more. So these are actually pictures the Surveyor 3 craft took of itself. There's the band as it attaches to the bottom of the scooper arm. Here's another picture. This one you can see the shadow of this. This is the scooper arm and this is the band on the bottom. Here again, it's like a scissor arm. Okay.
I think we get the point.
Yeah. All right. So now I want to pay special attention to this one. You can see how the band attaches here to the bottom of the scooper arm. This is the band that attaches here to the bottom of the scooper arm. So pay special attention to that one. So here's a few more of it took of itself. You can see the band here. Okay, now we're getting into, so this is the Apollo 12 images. Okay, so let me try to zoom in. Oops. So, sorry, that didn't work. So, what I'm trying to get at here is another share screen. Oop, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is the scooper arm, and you can see the band here on the bottom. So, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, you can see how the band splits here. You have, instead of one solid band, you have two bands coming into the bottom of this scooper arm. So what's happening here, there's several images of this, where on this one, on the Apollo 12, the band is splitting, and on the actual Surveyor 3 craft, we have a single solid band. Let me just pull up one more share screen so you can see that side by side. All right. So you can see here, this is the bottom band I'm talking about. Here, the bottom band has split into a left and a right side. And here on the actual Surveyor 3 craft, you can see it come in to the bottom of the scooper arm as one solid band.
That doesn't look like a left and right to me. That looks like an up and down.
Yeah, I'm seeing up and down.
Okay, either way, I'm seeing a left and right. You can look at the higher resolution on your own things, but what I'm seeing here on the Surveyor 3 is a single strand which is coming into the back of the scooper arm.
That's because you're viewing it from the top. Or because it didn't split yet. Maybe the split is degradation. I don't know.
I'm seeing it's the camera angle.
But yeah, that's definitely not a left and right split. That's an up and down split.
Well, you'll see it when you look at a higher resolution on your own.
No, I can see it. I can see it plainly here. I mean,
so, but what you're claiming is that might have been due to degradation,
or that it's simply the camera angle. I don't know.
Okay, well, when you get a chance to look at this more clearly on your own computer, then you'll see that they really screwed up here. This is not degradation. They made a big mistake when they made their fake Surveyor 3 craft for the Apollo 12 missions. When they filming this in this film studio, they screwed up and they put the wrong Surveyor 3 in their studio set. And you can tell here because the wire splits. So you go ahead and you look at that at home when you got.
You just leapt to a conclusion so majestically it was like a gazelle.
Yeah, I have them up on my screen here.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't look any different on the high res here. I see the camera angle is from above. I don't know if I can post it into your chat, James. I'll see if I can.
Were you able to screen share?
Looks like it did. There you go. There's a link of I don't know if this is the same source as you have, but
Yeah, if you need my sources, I can send them.
yeah, could you?
In a brief summary for any of us who are watching and trying to figure out, could you give us in one sentence how this shows that MC Toon and Peter's precious globe, or I'm sorry, not globe, moon landing. That's right.
Precious moon landing.
Thank you, Brother R. The precious moon landing. Can you explain how your photo is debunked their precious moon landing?
So it's quite so. Last time we debated, I showed several different discrepancies between the Surveyor 3 craft, the real Surveyor 3 craft, and the fake Surveyor 3 craft used on the Apollo 12 missions. There are several discrepancies. And last debate, MC Toon said that these were due to the debris, degradation, moon dust might have collected on it, and
Because you were talking about color, right?
Right. Back then we were
Yeah.
talking about color, but I found something which cannot be explained by degradation. This is a goof up, a big goof up. They've used the wrong.
I did not even
Surveyor
see a discrepancy, Rasa.
Okay.
You
There's
did
a
not show
single
a
band.
discrepancy.
There's a single band and a double band. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't show that. You didn't show a discrepancy.
I didn't show that.
No,
Okay,
you didn't show that. When I pointed out that was not what we were seeing, you simply claimed that it was more clear on your screen because you had the higher resolution photo.
No,
That's
no,
not you showing evidence. You didn't show a discrepancy.
Should I show it again? To me, it's very clearly it's split.
Okay, but if
wire.
you're just gonna say it looks left and right instead of up and down,
It
and
doesn't
not
matter.
show anything different, then we're gonna keep going in circles because that was obviously up and down to my eyes.
Up and down, left, right doesn't matter. What we're talking
It does
about
matter
is
because it's a camera angle.
Okay, so there's a split. There's other images of this. I'm just telling you to research this more when you're at home, because there's several images. I'm just showing you one here where
Yeah.
you can see this has
Yeah, and
split into
so-
two different.
Yeah, I see top and bottom, but can I say there are 4 lights?
Four lights.
Yeah, yeah. Continue.
So Rasa, zoom in again. Do you see that the band, when it's a single band, you can see the top of the band is a dark, not in the lower picture, in the top picture.
The top picture is a double band. The
Yes,
bottom
I'm talking.
picture is
No, I'm talking about toward the corner of the picture where it converges to a single band. Not the other
here,
picture.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
right
yeah.
there, right there. So look at that. You see the top of the band is dark and the side of the band is light. Do you see that?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, now follow the band toward the divergent point, the point of divergence. Do you see how the light colored side of the band overlaps the top of the right hand portion for the entire time that they are diverging until it's no longer overlapping, and then you can see the full top of the other band. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes.
That shows it is not splitting left to right, it's splitting top to bottom.
Okay. And how does that explain what we're seeing down here?
Camera angle. You're looking down on both of them. The one is hidden under the other.
It's hidden under the other.
Yes. Not 100%. I even think I see a tiny portion of it peeking out.
You're talking
Right
about
next to
here.
that black
Yeah.
dot there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
because
So
that black. That okay.
So I see what you're saying. It's a good point. However, I think that you have to do this research at home and you look at this more clearly, because what I'm seeing is not a up and a down and one.
I think
one
you're just seeing what you want to
split.
see, Rasa.
Well, you're seeing what you want to see also.
There are
That
three
doesn't
lights.
matter. You haven't shown a discrepancy. You're just
Well, I
nitpicking
haven't
something
sh-
about the image that you think is a discrepancy, but you haven't shown a discrepancy.
Okay, so he's saying that he has shown a discrepancy. You're saying no, it's not a discrepancy, and so right now you're just kind of looking at an impasse.
How is it evidence for his position if he hasn't shown anything objective? If it's
What he's showing, so yeah, you're saying it's not a discrepancy. He's saying this is a discrepancy. So you're just
if evidence is to be
Personal.
persuasive, it has to be
Button heads on this one.
objective.
it's
Yeah.
impasse. Okay?
No,
He's
it's not
saying
an impasse. It's a failure because
No,
if
it's not
evidence
objective.
if
It's all-
evidence is to be persuasive, it has to be objective.
Yeah,
Objective
he's saying this is
evidence.
objective. You're the one saying it's not objective. So it's just an impasse there.
Do you know what objective means?
Yes, I do. It's observable. Okay. And he's saying he's trying to show you this. This is very observable. That's why he's showing you pictures.
Observable with a connotation of not arguable. I
Uh-huh.
literally just dismantled piece by piece the argument that he was giving. That means it was arguable. That means it was subjective, not objective.
So this is kind of like, it's pareidolia, right? That's what you're kind of going for.
Oh.
It's kind of like the whole crabs on Mars. It's pareidolia. I'm like, no, this is
Yeah, when
objective.
you present
It's not
evidence
objective.
that
No,
is
it's
not
not.
objective, then that is a failure. And yes, that is another example of exactly that. Yes.
So yeah, this
So-
is just button heads on this impasse. And I can.
It's
I
a
can-
failure, not an impasse.
Not a failure.
It's a failure. It's a failure for me to convince you. All
It's a
I'm doing-
failure to present objective evidence.
according to what you think is objective. So, well, all I'm saying is that people should research this at home. Go download the NASA original images. Look at these images carefully yourself. See
Michael
if you
Toon,
see
should we make a
discrepancy.
t-shirt that says according to what you think is objective? I think that would make a
Yes,
good
That'd be
t-shirt.
great. James, can I share something quick, please?
Please do.
Go ahead.
All right,
Kyle.
hold on a second.
That's
I
a
need to-
beautiful
So
sentence, right?
long as you don't believe in proof, okay, that is disbelief in anything being ever truly objective.
Are you running back into the semantic?
It's kind of the
Oh,
same
you feel-
thing.
You got your huggy blanket going?
Okay, you don't
I
believe
need
in
to see
anything being
this.
objective, so don't go there.
That's not what that means, Kyle. You're just,
Proof and
that's,
objectivity are kind of the same thing there. I'm sorry. It's kind of, yeah.
All right.
We're
you're
going to-
just showing that you don't understand what we're saying. That's all
you
you're
can
showing.
clearly watch a hockey puck go right into the goal, and they're the kinds of people who are saying,
Kyle-
"Nope, I'm sorry,
Kyle.
that's not proof of anything. There's
Cool.
no such thing."
No
as
hockey puck has gone
I'll-
into your
I'll
goal.
address it.
I'm
if
sorry.
I'll
All we
address
can
that in
do
a
is
second
prove
here.
it.
Hold on. So here is another site here. This is a diagram of the.
Oh,
the
look at
super
how
arm
wide
there.
that is when viewed from the side.
Yeah, it diverges top and bottom here.
So clearly not a result of degradation since that's in a diagram before it was sent, right?
Yeah, top and bottom. So, all right, let me address this hockey puck thing. So, Kyle, you did a video about hockey pucks, trying to, go about scientific proof. Of course, did you post that on Facebook?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it talks about how
where I can't see it because you blocked me on Facebook. Super brave, Kyle. Super brave. Anyway, so hockey puck, a hockey goal. All right, so people at a hockey game, you've got maybe a camera that is trained on the goal, and then you see the hockey puck, and maybe you play it back frame by frame as the hockey puck goes from the ice, maybe lifts up a little bit, flies through the air, breaks the plane of the goal, continues, hits the net in the back, the net moves back and we see the results of the net moving because of that, right? You do the analysis of that whole thing. And then there are witnesses, there are people that were there and also were there. The guy that shot the goal, he's like, I saw the net move, boom. Proof that the goal happened, right? Your words, I'm using your words. Similarly,
Everyone can.
I'm not done. I showed analysis of hammer and feather drop on the moon, did frame by frame analysis of how long it took to fall, did the analysis of how fast it was accelerating, and compared side by side the hammer and the feather to ensure that they were both going at the same rate so that they were in zero pressure or nearly zero pressure environment. Similar, and there were witnesses. So by the same metric, proof that they were on the moon. There you go. Using your terminology, Kyle.
Yeah, you're saying that you can prove things now, even though you just said you were only saying that to make fun of me.
Once again, I'm mocking you, Kyle. I'm mockingly using your
Mocking yourself
terminology
now by saying it's
No,
not.
Kyle, do you understand that words can have different connotations?
No,
Most words in the English
yeah.
dictionary have 10 or more definitions. So, yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, so the word proof has different connotations. Whenever you're talking about us proving something, you try to change the word proof to mean there is no room for doubt ever in anyone's mind ever. If someone can imagine a way it's false, that's not proof. That's what you try to change the word proof to mean when you're talking about our proof. But when you're talking about your proof, you're just talking about, oh, to a reasonable person, it would be a certain matter. Like it would be sure, it would be definite. That's what you're trying to say. So you're changing the word proof to be more difficult when we're using it, but then easier when you're using it. So that's not showing that we're being inconsistent. That's just you being inconsistent.
You're saying I'm changing the definition when I gave no sign or indication that I'm changing the definition. So
you did give a sign and indication of it. It's in how you talk about the word proof and how you're trying to turn it into a gotcha whenever we use the word. If there are two different connotations that the word can carry in a
So it sounds
scientific.
like you're the one changing the definition and saying that we can use the word proof, but whenever we use the word proof, we're not referring to that kind of proof. It's referring to a different definition of proof. When I'm continually using proof by the same.
No, you're not. That's what I'm saying. You are the one changing definitions.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm the one who has the authority to define the words I'm using when I'm using. I am definitively, authoritatively telling you that my definition of proof remains constant.
And I am observing that that's not the case.
Okay, well, you're wrong. So that's it.
Anyway, by your metric,
authorship
Kyle,
can tell you that.
Kyle, I'm using your metric. That's why I'm using your word, because I'm using your metric. I don't take this to be my metric. It's your metric. So by your metric,
find it then.
With this, put all of this underneath that umbrella. The hockey goal is your metric proof, and the analysis I did of the Apollo 15 moon and feather drop, or hammer and feather drop, proof.
Okay, define it. If you're going to say that it's my definition, then you define it, and I can tell you whether or not it's
what I did. Is I used an analogous. You used a hockey goal analogy. I used that, and then whatever it is that you use for your definition of proof, don't care, right? I used your analogy and I applied that same thing to the evidence that I brought. So now here's the next step now, Kyle, isn't to bicker about the definition of proof, but it's to actually address what I presented.
And I did that.
No, you didn't.
You didn't.
Yes, I did.
You talked
Never did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about practical effects and we talked about different possibilities.
Yeah, our discussion of practical effects had the result that you had no leg to stand on because CGI did not exist in any viable form at the time. And every other rescuing device you tried to bring up was also invalid, like the radio signals or the pressure, like you just didn't.
Hand wave dismissing it. That's it. That's all you've done is hand wave dismissing.
No, that's literally what you are doing. That is what you are doing.
Okay. You have not convinced me on the matter whatsoever. Okay. By
Yes,
just
not
that's
trying to
not the
convince you.
standard.
Shining a spotlight on your inability to address the topic. That's what I'm doing. That's my goal, and I've accomplished it.
yeah, I did address the topic, and I told
No, you didn't.
like, why it
And by
doesn't
the
fit.
way, if you are authoritatively telling me that you are using the word proof with the same definition every time, then what that does is it makes 90% of your statements that contained the word incorrect or incoherent statements. So good job.
Okay, you're just saying that doesn't convince me of it. Okay.
All right, too bad.
Lying to me about my position isn't going to change my mind about my position.
We're not trying to change your mind, Kyle. I mean, if
Yes,
that
you-
if that
what are you
happened, that
doing
would be
here?
great. But
What are you
you
doing
keep
here?
missing that, Kyle.
we did not
not
come here.
Shining a spotlight on your failure, Kyle.
We did not
That's
come
what
here
I'm
with
doing.
any realistic hope of changing your mind. That's not a
So
thing
then
that
you're
usually
here for the
happens.
wrong reasons. Okay, you've automatically forfeited.
There are
No,
5
that's not what
spotlights.
happens.
There are
That's how
5
you-
spotlights.
That's how you win a debate, is by changing someone's mind.
The
If you're-
debate does not only exist in your brain, Kyle. It exists in a conversation between us.
Yeah, and
And in the observers watching.
no one changes
Yes.
their mind.
The observers watching.
You can't just shrivel up into your own brain as the indefense or the completely defensible fortress of against all logic and reason and evidence and say that you won the debate. That's not how it works.
I don't claim that. Okay, I don't.
That is
claim
what
I
you're
win the
claiming.
debate until someone changes their mind. If no one changes their mind, then no one wins. That's it.
No, what you're doing is you're turning your brain into an impenetrable fortress of against all logic and reason and evidence.
That's not
This
at
is-
all what I'm doing.
That is exactly what you're doing.
This
People
is
can
an
change my mind.
opportunity.
It's very open. Okay, people can change my mind. I wasn't always a flat earther. I used to believe in the moon landing.
All
I
right,
stopped
so
believing in
you
the
have
moon
a direction
change
to
me
the
back.
bias.
Okay, you can change me back. Okay.
Oh
It's
no.
not-
Oh no, I
not
don't
very-
think anyone can change your mind
That's not
back.
our goal.
You're
Not
right,
our goal.
because I think the Earth has been is provably flat, and so long as the Earth is provably flat, the moon landing did not happen.
This is an opportunity to go into the Q&A. I want to say thank you very much to our guests. Folks, they are linked in the description. If you haven't already checked out their links, this is a great opportunity. Even if you disagree, there's a value to hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, not what people in your group say the other side says, but you can go and read it yourself, or I should say listen to it. I want to say thank you very much. We're going to jump into these questions. This first one coming in from, do appreciate it. By the way, I've got a new screen set up here. So if I'm looking up, I am looking at a screen. Malmoria says, question for the hoaxers. Do you think we ever have landed ever or will ever land on the moon? Also, how do you feel about satellites? I think they mean like, are they real? I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
All right, satellites are balloons.
Okay. Do you think we ever landed at all or ever will land on the moon?
Rasa.
Yes, we definitely have been sending unmanned crafts to the moon, and we are eventually going to be able to send humans to the moons. I'm actually myself working with the people here in China who are trying to send the first humans to the moon.
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Luke the Thug says, okay, but did Neil Armstrong use the lasso tool? This one from Kango44 says, the moon landing was supposedly faked using a technique called lunar sublimation mapping.
Ooh.
This process, aided by, quote, gravitational dampering arrays, unquote, mimicked low gravity conditions and atmospheric subdiffusion. Thanks, GPT.
Sounds like a bunch of word salad.
That was comedy.
This one from Malmoria says, well, I'll give you a chance to respond if anybody wants to.
I think it was just making a joke.
Malmoria says, did NASA fake the Earth landing? Thanks for that. I know that one's a joke. This one
The
from
Earth
Dr.
landing.
Mantis says, question for Kyle. Are you still trying to claim Bob the science guy said the Big Bang is a religion? And then said, can Toon or Peter correct him after, please?
He said so. I've got it on video footage, and you can watch the entire hour-long, or I don't remember exactly how long it was. It was a long interview I had, and word for word, it was live. And so he said what he said.
Mike, is that a case of first law of Flurf? Sounds like it to me.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I really can't comment on it.
Okay.
It doesn't seem in character to me that Bob the Science Guy would say that the Big Bang is a religious position.
It shocked me too.
My guess is that that Kyle is probably, like other things, misinterpreting a position that Bob probably said something to, like the inability to directly observe it because you can't go back in time, things like that.
Or he might have been talking about secular humanism. There's atheists who say that's a religion, but I don't know.
This from Digital Wilderness says the feather in MC Toon's space cartoon could have been made of lead.
Yeah, it certainly it could have been a weighted feather, but that doesn't change a whole lot because the other things that happened in that that clip and other clips, you can see dust moving as Peter showed, and the dust doesn't do the things that dust would do in an air environment. So the feather falling at that rate is about being in a vacuum, and there's other things that confirm that there's a vacuum other than just the feather. So, but really it's about the amount of time that it took to fall, because the acceleration due to gravity on the moon is very different than on the Earth, and so they would have had to dramatically change the filming. And as I played, it isn't a viable option.
It's so sad when we consider giant steelman arguments of the denialist position in preparation for the debate, and then during the debate they never touch them.
They wouldn't even touch the evidence.
No,
Instant win. Just hand
the
us the
steel
win.
man would have been,
Brother.
it was on a parabolic plane or something that could have actually reduced the acceleration due to gravity for
Which I was
whatever
ready
amount.
for.
Brother
Yeah,
R
we were
wants-
ready for that, but nope.
Go ahead, Brother R.
Yeah, thank you. I did want to address the two issues. There are two proofs. First of all, as he mentioned with this hammer and feather thing, yes, it could have been a weighted feather. Now, regarding his other points about that, I want to direct you to the movie Capricorn 1. So in the movie Capricorn 1, they're getting ready to fake the Mars landing, and then as he's jumping down out of the craft, they tell him, okay, go to slow-mo, and then he slowly falls down. So if you actually watch this hammer and feather drop very carefully, there actually is a place just before he drops it where they do manipulate the film speed temporarily. So if you watch it, you'll be able to see that there are places where they have manipulated the film speed. Now, regarding the hammer and feather. Regarding the dust question, that also depends on what type of dust it is. So, for example, if it was like quick dry cement, which is very light and kind of floats in the air, it will also give that kind of hyperbolic arc. So this was how they faked all these things.
How do you like them apples, MC Toon?
Yeah, well, interesting claims. I would say he's going to need to provide some evidence for it, other than to just say, like Kyle had said, it's possible.
Kyle, what are
You
your
need to-
thoughts?
Yeah.
I've seen the movie Pete's Dragon before, and the way that works is you can literally
it's adorable.
cut these things into it. And so if you wanted to, you could put those, you could just copy and paste the hammer and feather manually and then have them go. That's a practical effect, right? Where you
Have you guys ever done any special effects? I've done special effects. Have you ever done any special effects?
I'm a YouTube creator. I do special effects all the time.
No, editing a video for uploading on YouTube doesn't count. Have you done any special effects?
Define special effects if that doesn't count.
Using image editing technology to make it look like something is happening on the screen that did not happen.
And you'd have to
Yes.
limit yourself to, late 60s, early 70s.
Yes. When I was, what was I? Junior high, I put a photo into a competition if you were small, where I took a picture of myself and made it look like I was like 3 inches tall.
Okay, good job.
Yeah.
I do that. I do that for.
on special effects.
I have done it for a living, and I'm telling you that what you're saying is nonsense. There is no way the moon landing was fake.
It does not convince you. Okay, but
This one from Exposing
Doesn't
Ma's
do-
Tricks says your 12-year-old bro says he can dunk a basketball. 5 years later, he can't. Do you believe he really dunked when he was 12?
Not comparable because the reason NASA stopped going to the moon was number one, it was a desolate rock. There was nothing there for us unless we can start colonizing, which we were not prepared to do in the 70s. And number two, Congress decided there were more important things to do with the NASA budget.
Congress took away their
So
money.
good idea. Abolish NASA.
This
no,
one?
the more important things were the space shuttle program.
Yeah, they sent it elsewhere.
Barbar Jenks says to the moon landing deniers, if NASA faked the moon landing, what else have they faked? Are they also lying about the shape of the Earth, for instance?
Absolutely.
Just hand a softball to Kyle. Perfect.
Can I?
Yes.
Does
Brother
Rasa have
R.
anything to say about
Yeah,
that?
Rasa. Take it, Rasa.
Yeah, they faked 9 missions. That would be Apollo 8, 10, and then 11 through 17. Because they cannot send human beings beyond low Earth orbit. We can send unmanned crafts to the moon, but
Kyle,
not
are you
the
going to
human
take that
beings.
standing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Kyle. Kyle, don't take that. Don't take that, Kyle.
He just mentioned a whole bunch of other things that they also faked. And I'll add to that and say NASA also claims that stars are formed by gas clumping together in the vacuum of space.
That's
But
correct.
nowhere
That's
do we
what that
ever
happens. Yep.
observe gas clumping in a vacuum. Gas expands in a vacuum.
This one
uh,
from
Oh,
Bredimus, 118 IQ, says, cheers, chat, watching the Super Soys defend a cartoon wasn't on my weekend plans. Oh my goodness, MC Toon, are you going to take that, being called a
Well, that
Super
was-
Soy?
I'm pretty sure that was directed at Kyle and Rasa.
Super
Kyle?
soy. I am a
Ouch.
vegetarian, so yeah,
Oh,
people.
man. Okay, this one.
I'm a meatitarian.
Kyle, is that because you think NASA's lying about the animals?
No,
It
it's
is.
actually
It
kind of like religious.
It's got.
I'm just ribbing you, Kyle.
This one from LJ says, if the moon is bright enough light to be seen 238,000 miles away per the current globe model, then how did the astronauts not get blinded when, quote, landing on it?
He's like 100% of the light of the moon was reflected right at them while they're at the moon. No, the moon is big. They were only on a very small portion of it, so only the portion they were on, in their vicinity, was reflecting light at them, not the entirety of the moon. My goodness.
It's the same reason you don't get blinded when you walk outside on a sunny day. It happens on the Earth just like it happens on the moon. The sun shines on both celestial bodies.
This one from Kang044 says, Kyle, you are willfully ignorant for this topic. Before trying to debate a subject, maybe learn something about it.
Just a banter. That's all he's got.
I like James's intonation in that.
Kang044, you can hear the resentment in Kang044. I'm just transferring it. They say, I find it amazing, almost unbelievable that people manage to build the pyramids. I'm a pyramid whistleblower. ADHD Projects says, Kyle, source, what is the source for Buzz saying that it was staged? Don't run.
I've got a link to it. I don't. I could probably pull it up for you if you really want to see it.
They desperately want to see it.
I predict it is disgusting misinformation where it took him out of context.
Is this like a
On
website
purpose.
you
Yeah.
made, Kyle? Come on, be honest.
I've got my database where
Well, it wouldn't have to be him because there is a overflowing glut of misinformation about this on all of
Really?
these astronauts.
Are there
Yes.
some that say
I've-
Buzz? Oh, do they actually quote him?
Yeah, they take clips and they literally edit the clips to make it sound like they're saying something they aren't.
Yeah.
Kyle,
got
are
a-
you doing that?
He
Yes.
did say that.
No,
it
he's
was in,
just believing it when they say that. When they do
I
that.
think it was in
No,
that
I-
one
from,
interview.
like official sources. Otherwise, if it's not from an official source, it kind of loses its power. So when he says it like on like neutral platform, then it's a lot more powerful.
Except that it's taken out of context and twisted.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, you saying that isn't going to change my mind on the matter. So
So that people can search it up, maybe you can explain what you can from memory so that they can search for it.
okay. The Brian meets Buzz in the Science Museum, and that's the one where he says it was staged.
Was it
Oh, right.
literally what I explained earlier where he said that like he said we saw the moon landing and he said no you didn't, it was animated, because he
No,
was
that
referring to
was
those
the
few
interview with
seconds.
Conan O'Brien.
That was a talk show, yeah.
Yeah, that was the interview with Conan O'Brien. This one,
Yeah.
this quote comes from Professor Brian Cox meets Buzz Aldrin at the Science Museum. You can find it on YouTube, and yeah, I've got a link to it.
I
And
think what he's talking about here is he was talking about the training sessions, actually. I think that's
Interesting.
what you mean with taking it out of context.
Yeah, he goes on and says it so well staged. If you pull up the transcript, you can find the spot immediately.
This one from Atlas6355. Thank you very much for your kind words. And John Lambert says, Brother R, if there are higher resolution pictures, why didn't you share them? And how can you draw your conclusion when you are looking at different angles of the arm?
Okay, so I didn't say there's higher resolutions. I just say that it's more clear when you look at it on your own computer. So, but I'm willing to admit they did offer a very good solution to the problem I was posing. And this is not the first time that I've been wrong, you know. Last time there's been a couple times where I offered some could come up with explanations.
All right.
well, thank you for admitting that, Rosna.
Yeah, thanks.
We got to share screen. Who just shared their screen of this gentleman?
That's Kyle.
Kyle.
Okay.
That's me.
Kyle
You asked-
strikes
I've
again.
read the transcript. He's talking about the framing of the photograph.
It's so
he
well
used the
staged.
word, yeah, he used the word staged when he could have used the word framed, but he's not a photographer.
He called it staged.
So that's not an admission that it was all staged. That's you misinterpreting intentionally what he said.
So exactly what I said.
Yeah.
It's twisted out of context.
It's not twisted out of context.
Kyle,
Oh, it
your holy-
is.
Kyle, your holy underwear is upset at you.
No, it's not. So
This one from I Killed Earl says, there have been 6 moon landings by humans. Are they all lies? And what about the color images and video of the most recent moon landing by the US in February 2024?
There was more than 6 lies. There was 9 lies. Don't forget about Apollo 8, 10, and 13, where they also claimed to have gone around the moon. There was 9 times they lied, not 6.
Okay.
There were
so
0
you're
times they
saying
lied.
You're upping the ante. And they say, but what's their motive? I think they're saying, why is it, Brother R? What do they get out of this lie? How are they getting ahead by lying to everybody?
That's a very good question. And actually, I think, so most people, that is a good question. Why didn't they just admit it? We can't do it, you know? JFK put the thing out there, do it by the 1969, and they decided to fake it rather than make it. But they could have just easily admitted, we can't do it. And the answer to this question has to do with the Freemasonic New World Order. It has about bringing about
Oh,
the
my goodness.
Freemasonic New World
I
Order.
get it.
Nixon
now.
also wanted people to like him. And so that was like one of the first things he did in office. We got a man on the moon. Okay. There's a lot of political turmoil going on in the world in the day with Vietnam and all these other stuff. They needed a win. That was their goal for a win, to try and get people to like him.
Wait a minute. Do you guys have two different motives? I'm not saying that they're not compatible. I guess you could have two different
They're not
motives.
compatible.
There's
No.
also a lot of money involved, but yeah,
So
Is
MC
that are you
MC
using
Toon
that,
doesn't
Mike?
sound
Because
there's
convinced.
multiple motives. It's not just a single motive. There's a lot of
This is
different.
my
Especially when you have
1 gallon Freemason jar.
I was just gonna say.
There's a lot of different motives involved with a lot of different people, and yeah, when they go up,
You know, what'd be
and-
cool, Peter, is if I could hand it off screen and then you would have it
Oh no!
on yours and you'd take it. That'd be great.
People would start conspiracy theories that we're
I know.
somehow like
I'm sorry.
somehow more connected than we are
Yeah.
because
I'm sorry,
Well, for
Kyle. I was
me-
interrupting your nonsense. I'll stop.
If there's no questions, I also have another thing to present.
There
We're
are
after-
more
We're
questions.
done with
If
that
you- if
part.
it's
We're done with
relevant,
that part, Rasa.
if it's
We're
relevant,
way
Keep
past
going.
that.
Yeah,
I'll
there's
give
a
you an
moon
outline
landing.
next time, Rasa. I'll give you. Here's where you present evidence. Here's where we talk about it. Here's where you answer questions from the audience.
I can present evidence for years if you want, but if you want, I
No.
can present.
Oh my God.
now he's starting from here forward for years. Now's your chance. MC Toon, now is
Oh,
your
Rasa,
chance.
you're the best. You're the best,
Rasa
Rasa.
does things on his own time. Rasa will give you if you have something you want to show really
Yeah.
quick, and then we've got to get to the
Yeah,
next
really
question.
quick.
Oh
real
my
quick.
gosh.
So, let me know when you can see that, huh? Yeah.
Now we can.
So last time we discussed the shadow lengths, and MC Toon made the comment that if it was a stage light, then the person standing closer to the stage light would have a shorter shadow. And normally he's right. But if you shine the stage light through a lens, as I just did, and you have one astronaut standing closer to the lens, then the astronaut standing closer to the stage light will have a
those are
longer
really
shadow.
cute little toys. Are those Legos?
Yeah.
Okay,
Are
so
they
how did they
not?
have
They're
how do they
not
have a
Legos.
collimating lens that was as large as the sound stage or whatever that was visible in the photographs?
Yeah, it would have to been a really large lens, but I'm sure NASA could have pulled that off.
It
I mean,
would have
that
been-
lens I just showed you cost me $5, you know, so how much do you think NASA could make a giant lens to focus those light beams?
Yeah, a 200-foot wide Fresnel lens.
Doesn't have to be 200.
Also,
It doesn't
there's
have to be 200.
chromatic aberration that would result. The only
Yeah.
chromatic aberration visible in the Apollo stuff, depending on which camera you're talking about, there was one camera where they had a red, green, and blue, like the red, green, and blue channels were imaged like separately by a disc that was spinning
Yeah,
really, really
in the video.
fast, and so you get like chromatic
TV.
shearing in motion, but not like not chromatic aberration that would result from a lens like that. No.
Right. So anyway, what I did was MC Toon said it would be impossible to create that effect using a stage light, and I just did it with, you know, a $5 lens.
You
And
could
Legos.
create it at a
Yeah.
small scale, a tabletop scale, but not
But
at
I
a.
could also, you could make it large enough lens that it would do that on a human subject as well. I'm sure NASA could get a lens that large if they wanted.
You
I
got
have
it?
to admit, Rasa, this argument is impressively higher level than what I get from flat earthers most of the time.
Yeah.
A collimating lens. Good job. Good job. I'm impressed. To recognize that was a problem and to think of a solution that almost works in theoretically.
It's not-
hypothetically,
Yeah, it theoretically works. They could have done it that way. and they
almost.
definitely did.
I don't think it quite works, but almost.
I do.
It
have,
did.
I
It
mean,
did. It surely wasn't sunlight. That I can guarantee you, because the shadow lengths would not have worked under sunlight. It would have had to have been what I just showed you.
Okay, that makes no sense. I don't know why you're saying that.
This one from I Killed Earl also asked, I think that earlier satellites were said to be balloons. I Killed Earl says, what about the International Space Station? Is this some sort of blimp, Kyle?
The United States has a lot of different classified flying machines. Exactly what the ISS is, I don't know. But I can just point to all of the different footage of astronauts and wires and the weird fake stuff going on, in said ISS. And I think that raises a lot of suspicion. And so if they claim to be up there, there's something amiss here.
Are you talking about like the footage of that just got like compression artifacts from the video transfer and stuff like that?
That's part of it, but I think it's more where they'll take like a couple seconds of some ISS footage. Often is a copy of a copy of a copy instead of going to the source. And then they'll only look at that little segment of it instead of the entire sequence. So for example, there's the one where there's a blow up Earth in a beach ball kind of thing. And he's holding it under his arm and he squeezes it out. It goes down and it bounces down. And then they stop. They're like, oh, it fell in gravity, where everything else in the frame is floating around. And then if they didn't pause it, a couple seconds later, that blow up beach ball starts floating up in front of the frame again, slowly.
Okay, I'm talking about like doing a somersault and then everyone kind of looking at, oh, look at the wires. And now we got to grab the wires and move them and kind of while smiling at the camera like nothing's going on.
Oh, you mean the people that are too close to be on wires because they'd be cutting each other?
So I could show you,
Yeah.
I can pull up the footage of ISS fakery if you really want me to.
Is there any Chinese fakery? The Chinese space station? I'd be really sad if that's a fake.
The
Oh,
Okay, the
you're gonna break
Chinese
Ross's heart
were
here.
working in collaboration with the United States on the ISS back in the day. I know they're kind of
that's
doing their own
news.
thing now, but it wasn't always the case where they're totally independent. They used to be total collaborators, and yeah, there's some kind of
Ooh, I'm gonna need to see
sad news
that
there.
documentation.
Fight, 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 fight.
We'll jump into the next one. This one from John Malaya. Says, Scooper arm, in all caps, never let go. Thank you for that. This one from LJ says, it's 2024. Why don't we have a camera on the moon yet?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
This one from Lil Drill. It's not a live stream, is it? That would be awesome.
I don't think they have a live stream.
No,
But the
because-
Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is taking photos constantly.
That's orbiting it, yeah.
If it only
But-
requires 12 watts, why not?
So that it's a bit of a ridiculous ask to put a camera on the moon, because there's better ways to do it. But if you wanted to put it on the moon, you'd have to have it run off a battery for 2 weeks, and then have the solar panels charge up the battery plus run for 2 weeks. The logistics of that is a bit more complicated than just putting something in orbit, because you
I
also
thought you
have to
said there
land.
was a camera on the moon already.
There have been cameras on the moon. They
Are
are
not-
not currently functioning.
Oh, okay.
But there is the LRO is currently orbiting the moon. It's not pointed at the Earth, but there are other satellites that are taking photographs and video of the Earth. And why are they any different than if it was sitting on the moon? It wouldn't be any significantly different view, because if it was a camera on the moon pointing at the Earth, it just looked like it's a camera pointing at the Earth, and you wouldn't know that it was on the moon at all.
There's also a satellite
Chinese.
orbiting the Lagrange point between Earth and Sun called the Discover satellite, and it's taking photographs of the Earth on an hourly basis. And you could just Google Epic Discover and see the latest one, and then flip through the calendar. There's tons of them.
Go look at some
Cool.
hurricanes on there.
So they can't just
Got
leave it
Chinese
on
rovers.
live setting. They
They
somehow
do, yeah, they-
need to be there. Like if you're
They-
leaving all your equipment there, why not just flip it on live and just leave it going?
They did,
Awesome.
and then it ran out because it was running on battery.
Running on
Brother
battery.
R, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just saying that China has rovers on the moon with cameras right now in operation. So
This one from
Fight,
Lil
fight, fight.
There you go.
Lil Drill says, how are we able to pass through the Van Allen belts back then with less efficient technology, but we aren't able to pass through today?
We are.
We can pass through today. That was easy. Wow. Maybe that whoever asked that should do a little more of their own research. But the typically, I think Rasa has a little better handle on this than Kyle. Definitely. But
Who's
the
gone and done that?
primary, what's that?
Who's currently going out and past the Van Allen radiation belts? You know, that's kind
Cool.
of
Kyle, you're disagreeing. Awesome. Kyle, what is the
against other
radiation?
people saying we can't go past low Earth orbit. We just
Kyle,
can't.
Kyle, what is the radiation? What type of radiation is in the Van Allen belts?
Okay. Why is Don Pettit saying we can't go past low Earth orbit? Okay,
He
we're not
didn't.
we're
We
getting
can.
this from like the
We have.
official sources saying we can't.
No,
We can't.
because Kyle,
I've never heard any official source
once
say
again,
that.
Kyle,
Oh,
you are not understanding the context. The context was they were sending new hardware through. When you send new hardware, when you have new hardware that's going to be human rated, you have to certify it by sending it without humans first. And so this is new hardware using new computers that have not been certified to go through that yet. So they need to certify that first. That's what it was about. So again, it's a misappropriation of the context. But Kyle, back to the question: what is the type of radiation in the Van Allen radiation belts?
I don't know. So I just
Okay.
know it's
Not
deadly
tall enough to
hazardous
ride.
radiation that, and yeah, NASA goes and talks about it. It's deadly. You want to know the type of radiation?
Not
It's
tall
deadly.
enough to ride. Rasa, you can set him straight.
Okay.
Actually, I'm just wondering, you said, is it possible to go to low Earth orbit at all? I'm asking Kyle.
Is that possible to go? NASA
Yeah.
says it's deadly. We can't go there.
Low Earth
No, I
orbit.
mean, I'm not beyond. I know the Van Allen belts are deadly, but is it possible to stay below
I don't
Earth?
think Kyle knows the difference between those things.
Is it possible to stay below Earth orbit? We're all below Earth orbit, so yes, we can.
No.
No, we're not in low Earth orbit.
Is it possible to
we are
stay
below
below?
Earth orbit.
Are we below? Is it possible to stay below the Van Allen belts? Is what I mean to
We
say.
are all below the Van Allen belt, so yes, it is possible to stay below them.
I've got to go to the next one. But I do want to say, folks, we have no more time for extra super chats. So if you haven't have any questions, I'm sorry, we can only answer the ones that we've got in this list. So please don't submit any more questions. This one coming in from Barbar Jinx says, how does Rasa feel about being compared to flat earthers? I think they want to give you a chance, Rasa. I think they know that you're not a flat earther and they want to give you a chance to express that. I could be wrong. But Rasa, maybe you changed those. Are you a flat earther?
No, it's not even funny that they would try to compare.
Rasa
I
is
think it's a little
insulted that you
funny.
guys would compare.
No offense.
No offense,
I
Kyle.
think it's a little funny.
sorry, Kyle. Okay, but nonetheless, I want to
I
say
also
I know
think
we.
it's.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, they can laugh at whatever they want. When I say it's a Freemasonic New World Order, you can laugh all you want. But I have a friend who was abducted and kidnapped and used in a sexual blood ritual thanks to these Freemasons. So to me, it's not a joke.
You got it.
Well, that
This-
got dark.
Yeah, that escalated quickly.
This one coming in from one person did say, can you just give a brief explanation of the Van Allen belt? Because the question earlier said like, hey, why is it at one point supposed to be hard to go through it and another point it's easy? Can you explain just what the Van Allen belt is for the audience in a very basic, quick way?
I can do that. So the magnetic field of the Earth interacts with the particles coming from mostly from the sun. The particles are charged particles, so they're not gamma particles, not photons. So they're alpha and beta gamma particles, which are easily blocked by paper or a thin layer of aluminum. But they are also generally donut shaped around the Earth. So if you go through the top part of the donut or the bottom part of the donut, you have a smaller amount of exposure. So when they left the orbit of the Earth, they went generally out through those. I think one of them came back more direct through the belt instead of kind of coming in through a high angle but because they're moving really fast, it wasn't as much of an issue.
So they had to mind the Van Allen belt in the same way that we have to mind a pothole when we're driving.
You got it. This one coming in from John Malaya says, Brother R, Are you helping China? Let's see. They say the scooper arm. Is this a new tech thing from China? They say, Brother R, are you aware of it? And will it have sideway or up and down bands?
Oh,
Is this supposed to be a troll? Okay, I think it was a troll.
it might be a troll.
This one from Double Down says, question for Brother R. You say, okay, I'm gonna pitch you guys against each other as much as people want to see you guys do battle. Barbar Jinx. Sorry,
Fine,
Double
fine,
Down.
fine.
They say,
We can
but
go back
I
and
suppose. Well,
about it
you
debate
guys
about
do have an interesting disagreement, or maybe it's not a disagreement. You, Brother R, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. You think that it's a Freemason idea, namely this idea of the moon landing, and then Kyle, you think it's more of a NASA thing, and it could.
Well, NASA
So
and Freemasonry are hand in hand.
okay, so they maybe have some sort of like behind the scenes cooperation that you're saying. Maybe that's you guys wouldn't necessarily disagree with each other.
Have you seen Buzz Aldrin's Freemason ring?
Yeah, MC Toon, have you seen it?
I went to church with a Freemason. They're not that scary.
Yeah.
MC Toon, have you seen the
certainly-
ring? He wears a ring, a Freemason ring on his
Oh,
arm.
ring! Oh
a
my God.
ring! Did he turn invisible when he put it on?
Yeah,
Was it
Listen to these
green? And
guys.
did he have to hold a lantern in order to power it up?
You know what?
Did it
MC
reveal his
Toon,
position to Sauron?
the big indicator that Buzz Aldrin is a Freemason. So
He is. They don't hide that.
okay, yeah, and so there's a
Oh.
lot of connection between Freemasonry.
The burden of proof you're lacking is that they have that all of these things you have asserted that they do, you have the burden of proof to show that they're behind it, but you just like to believe it.
Barbar Jinx says, is Kyle just Sal on Impractical Jokers pranking us? Double
Oh my
down.
gosh. Sal, big fan. I love
Double
it. I
down.
love you, Sal. But I
Double-
don't know. I think he might have a little more of a myrrh thing going.
This one
I
from
don't know.
Double Down says, follow up for the hoax side. When governments can't get along at all, why wouldn't they be able to never out a competing government about these quote unquote lies?
When they've been collaborating, okay, like Russia collaborating with the United States, they can't out us without also outing themselves.
I see. RT16 says, Kyle, I Googled, quote, when was CGI invented? The articles from that search say that CGI was only able to make basic shapes until the 1970s. Kyle, do you
Okay.
agree?
I'm glad that he agrees that CGI was invented earlier.
Yeah, have you ever played an Atari game?
Yes, I played an Atari game. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not impressive graphics.
I'm not claiming they are. I'm not claiming they are. And I go with Pete's Dragon. It's you use the manual things instead of copy and pasting it digitally. You do it by hand.
Do you know the difference between practical effects and CGI?
Yes. Okay. One is not doing it by hand, and the other one is
Okay, do you know what CGI stands for?
computer generated graphics. Yes.
Graphics doesn't start with an I, but close enough.
Oh,
Yes.
information
In order for it, there's a lot of manual work that actually goes into CGI, but the point is that you're using the computer as a tool to generate the image. Anyway,
So
I
coming in,
guess
RT16 says, James, why do you host Kyle? Well, we have to give everybody a fair shot, and I have to say, I do appreciate Brother R and Kyle. I've even giggled at times and jabbed you guys playfully tonight. I do appreciate you guys being good sports. And as well as MC Toon. I always do like to tease MC Toon and Peter. You guys are good sports as well, so thank you guys. And they always ask, why do you have that MC Toon on? Yeah, I know he's not perfect, but come on. All right, this one coming in from
what's wrong with Toon?
Exposing Ma's trick. Oh, we'll get into that later. I don't have enough time.
Oh, come
This
on,
one-
guys.
Exposing
We go
Ma's
way back.
tricks. says, isn't rock jumping being the only industry in the history of the world to devolve enough to question hollow? In my eyes, you are holo, if not. Is this some sort of new slang the kids are
Rock?
using?
Rock
It's
jumping?
not the only industry in the history of the world to regress. That's just not correct. Also, it's arguably not an example of technological regression. It's just an example of us realizing that it was pointless to continue sending people to the moon. We had learned all there was to learn there pretty much, and Congress wanted to spend their money elsewhere, namely in the shuttle program and things like that.
This one came in just Kang044 submitted it, and this is past our but I can't help it. They are curious. Brother R without and they don't mean to. I'm not trying to in any way disrespect or even let's see. You had mentioned, I think you said a friend, you believe based on his testimony that he was kidnapped by some sort of Freemason type group. And I think they're asking, you must trust them a lot, right? Because to believe that anybody got kidnapped, I don't know. I'm not sure how unlikely it is. I guess it happens all the time. But whether they say it's a Freemason type of kidnapping. Um, I guess they're wondering what is the reason that you believe them? Is it purely just their testimony that you trust the person?
Correct.
What was your relationship to this person, if I may ask?
He's a good friend of mine. I've known for many years.
Yeah, where did you meet him? Like, what kind of relationship did you have? Can you give any more specifics?
I'd rather not. It's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. It's a very sad story, actually.
And now, Kyle, do you believe, as a side note, because this is interesting, if you guys Freemasons, do you think that there's any sort of like Freemasons out there that are also malevolent?
You're talking to a Latter-day Saint here. Joseph Smith was murdered by Freemasons. So
I don't know who Georgia Smith is. I'm sorry.
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith. He's the founder of Mormonism.
I see. Okay.
Kyle just identified as a Mormon.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought I heard Georgia.
Yeah.
But
Joseph
nonetheless,
Smith murdered by Masons. So yeah, there are Masons out there with malevolent intent.
Gotcha. With that, I want to say, folks, if you want more, because I got to be honest, I want more, but I got to keep the promise that we're going to wrap up. If you want more, check out our guest links. You can listen to their videos. Also, if you are like, hey, but Brother R doesn't have a link, because currently Brother R hasn't started a channel yet. Brother R does have other debates on Modern Day Debate you can find in our Science Debates playlist. Check those out. I want to say thank you very much to our guests, Kyle, Brother R, MC Toon, and Peter. It's been a true pleasure to have you tonight.
I did send a link to the chat. At the beginning of the chat, I sent a link to my YouTube channel. That's all I have now.
You got it? Let's see. If you're able to, it's just that it's so hard for me to change it on the laptop that I have the Zoom chat on. Are you able to email it to me?
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that, folks. Oh, that reminds me. Folks, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen, you don't want to miss this. It is this Monday. If you are anywhere near the University of South Carolina, Destiny versus Owen Shroyer, live debate in person, there's an option for a free ticket. Free tickets. So bring a friend. It's going to be awesome if you're anywhere near the University of South Carolina. With that, I want to say thanks to our guests. I'll be back in about 19 seconds with a quick little post-credit scene, but want to say thanks to our guests one last time. And we'll see you in that post-credit scene.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. I'm not dying. Get out of here.
Folks, thanks so much for being here. Do want to give, oh, sorry, we missed that last super chat. Let's see. Instant Opus improvised. They said, would Kyle accept that Kubrick may have filmed a backup video to show if Apollo 11 was falsified and that it has leaked over time, creating confusion? Sorry that I missed that question. Instant Opus, in future debate, let me know. Say, hey, you owe me a super chat, and we'll read a new question in that debate in addition to the reading it just now, because I know that you wanted actually to have Kyle respond to it. So I'm sorry that we just wrapped up right when you submitted that question. I do want to just take a moment, literally about a moment, to just quick plug this debate at the bottom right of the screen. Oh, you can't see me. Is, as you can see at the bottom right of the screen, this is going to be a huge debate. Owen Shroyer from InfoWars and Destiny will collide. This is going to be a huge debate. You don't are anywhere near University of South Carolina. The tickets are linked in the description box. And I highly encourage you, check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be there personally. It's going to be a blast. And I hope you make it. Seriously, it's going to be super fun. Trump or Harris, who would be the better 47th president? That's going to be at University of South Carolina. And it's going to be this Monday, October 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So come on out. It's going to be a blast. Hang out with us in person. I will be there moderating it in person. And it's being sponsored by Uncensored America. This is a collaboration, kind of a crossover promotion. They're a fellow promoter as Modern Day Debate. I think that what you could say Modern Day Debate is like we're a promotion, a debate promotion organization. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be epic. And I want to say thank you guys for all your support. I will hopefully see you at that debate. If you're not anywhere near, if you're like, bro, I live in California, I'm not going to be able to get out there by Monday. It will be live streamed at Modern Day Debate. You watch it there this coming Monday night. It's going to be an epic debate. But I want to say thank you guys for being here. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. I got to run. I wish I could stay longer, but thanks for all being. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we'll see you at the next one.